Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto gains a power that few would ever believe could be found. Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Hokage's office. Minato Namikaze, otherwise known as the 4th Hokage, sat in his office reviewing his plan to stop the Kyuubi. You see, just 2 days ago he received news that the great Kyuubi no Kitsune, the 9-tailed demon fox, was slowly approaching the village. Ever since the Hokage had done a great deal of research into stopping Kyuubi, however there was only one option available. He had to seal it away, and not just into an object or animal, it had to be a child. It saddened him to realize that he would have to use his own soon-to-be-born son to do the sealing. Sure, there were other children that were going to be born on that day, but how could he ask someone else to allow him to seal a demon in their child if he could not do the same? Realizing that time was growing short, he stood up and headed to the hospital to inform his wife of his terrible yet necessary plan. Hospital. Minato arrived at the hospital to discover that his wife had already gone into labor, and quickly headed in. Several hours later he stood in his wife's hospital room watching as she cradled his new son Naruto in her arms. Kushina was feeling weak and knew that she would not survive long due to the stress childbirth had put on her system. However, she was determined to memorize everything about her child before she passed. Kushina, Minato said to his wife, "I have found a way to stop the Kyuubi." "What is it?" she asked wearily, not liking the tone in her husband's voice. "I have to seal it away in a newborn child," he answered with a sad tone that told Kushina everything she needed to know. Kushina started to cry as she realized exactly what his plan was. "You are going to use Naruto?" "Yes," he replied as he too started to give in to his emotions. "But it gets worse. The only jutsu that will allow the Kyuubi to be sealed will also take my life, leaving Naruto an orphan." "Why can you not use another child?" she asked, already knowing the answer. "Because I am unable to ask someone else to do what I am unwilling to do myself." They both proceeded to hug and cry with each other, both knowing that Naruto was going to have a hard life ahead of him. Hokage's office. Later that day, Minato sat in his office crying as he cradled his son in his arms, for his wife had just passed away, and in just a few short minutes, he would need to perform the sealing ritual that would take his life and curse his sons. His predecessor, the 3rd Hokage, was sitting in the office, having been called there his successor. "Old man, I have found a way to defeat Kyuubi. Unfortunately, I will have to seal it in my own son," said the 4th, having briefly stopped crying so he could be understood. Sarutobi looked sad himself as he replied, "I was afraid of that. I would try to stop you, but knowing how stubborn you are, I am guessing it would be useless." "You know me too well, old man," stated the 4th. "Can you please do me a favor and try to make sure he is seen as a hero?" "I will try, but you know how he is most likely going to be treated." "I know, but I need you to look out for him. I know it will be difficult, but if you find a way to make him happy, please do everything you can to make it happen." "I will," stated the 3rd with a tone of finality in his voice. "I have one more thing to ask of you," Minato asks as he reaches into his desk to pull out a scroll. "Would you please keep his heritage a secret from the council and give Naruto this scroll when he is old enough to know? He will already be in danger from this village alone. We do not need my enemies coming after him as well." "You do not need to worry about that. I will make sure he will know when he is ready." "Thank you." Suddenly the doors were slammed open as one of his jounin ran in. "Hokage-sama, the Kyuubi has arrived." "Very well, hold it back, I will be there shortly," he ordered before turning to his predecessor. "Goodbye, old man, keep the village safe." "I will," replied the 3rd as he watched the 4th leave with his child in his hands. Battlefield. The situation looked dire as all of the village's shinobi attempted to hold off the Kyuubi from getting any closer to the village. Screams of pain echoed throughout the battlefield as ninja died in various painful ways, and yet, all the while, a deep, menacing laugh could be heard coming from the Kyuubi itself as it caused this misery. A sudden vibration in the ground caught the Kyuubi's attention. It turned towards the source and spotted a giant toad upon which stood the 4th Hokage. The Kyuubi began to briefly stare as it watched the man bend down and start talking to a child. With the 4th arrived at the battlefield to see the Kyuubi focus its attention on him. He bent down and placed his son on his summon Gamabunta before he began to talk. "I am sorry for what I am about to do to you, Naruto. I just hope that one day you can forgive me for this." With that he stood and turned to the Kyuubi and shouted, "Why did you come to Konoha?" With a malicious grin the Kyuubi responded, "I came to show you all just how pathetic you really are." "Then I am afraid I cannot let you proceed any further," Minato responded before starting a series of hand seals. "You think you can stop me? I will show you just how wrong you are," the Kyuubi stated before charging at the 4th. Unfortunately, that brief moment of talk was all Minato needed to complete the seals for his jutsu as the form of the Shinigami appeared behind him. The ghostly apparition plunged its hand into a representation of Minato's soul before coming out of Minato's stomach to grab onto the Kyuubi. The Kyuubi itself knew something was wrong the moment it saw a ghostly arm reach out of the 4th's stomach and grabbed onto him. For the first time in a very long time, the Kyuubi knew what it was to feel fear as it watched the spectral form of the death god appear behind the 4th and begin to pull out its soul. Mere moments had passed from the point at which the Kyuubi's soul was pulled from its body to the point at which it was sealed into a crying baby boy resting on top of the giant toad. The 4th looked down at his son for the last time as the said, "Grow strong, my son, and protect those precious to you. I know you will make us proud." With those final words his soul was pulled from his own body, causing it to go limp. Hokage's office. It had been an hour since the battle. Sarutobi, the third Hokage of Konoha, once again sat in the Hokage chair as he prepared to tell the council about the sealing and the wishes of the fourth. He stood up and walked over to look at a sleeping Naruto. Naruto, you are going to live a hard life, and for that I am sorry, but I promise you, I will find a way to make you happy. He picked up the sleeping Naruto and began to walk in the direction of the council chambers. Council chambers. As Sarutobi walked into the council chambers, many of the council immediately recognized the small baby in his arms as the boy that was for some unknown reason found in the middle of a battlefield. Sarutobi walked over to his seat and turned to face the council with sadness written on his face. Ladies and gentlemen, as you may be aware, our beloved fourth Hokage gave his life to defeat the Kyuubi no Kitsune. However, what you do not know is how he accomplished this. He used the forbidden jutsu to summon the Shinigami himself to seal the Kyuubi away at the cost of his life. The child you see before you is the child he sealed it into, so that is the Kyuubi, said one of the council members. We need to kill it quickly while it is still weak, stated another. A few more similar statements were made before the Hokage had had enough. No! This is not the Kyuubi, he is simply a child who has already had a great burden placed upon him, stated the third. But look at those whisker marks, they are a complete giveaway, replied yet another ignorant villager. Enough! Shouted the third. From now on this is an S-class secret. No one who does not already know of this is to be told under the penalty of death. Do I make myself clear? But it is a damn quiet. This council meeting is dismissed. With that being said, the third marched out of the room and back to his office, leaving a very annoyed council behind. Outside the orphanage, Naruto, currently being in his third year of his life, has had to deal with things that not many his age could understand. For you see, the fact that Naruto is the container of the Kyuubi has meant that he has lived a hard life. However, even with the life he has had so far, he can still find things to smile about, although they are few. Today being one of those special days that he was glad to be alive, for you see, today is the day the Hokage, or the old man as Naruto calls him, comes to spend an entire day with him. It was for this reason that if one were to be up early enough, they would see the beloved Hokage walking through the village towards a widely grinning Naruto who was currently sitting on the steps of the orphanage. Good morning, Naruto greeted the Hokage as he approached. Hey old man, what are we going to do today, replied Naruto as he ran up and hugged the Hokage. The Hokage chuckled as he answered, well, to begin with, I am taking you to the park. We are going to be meeting up with a friend of mine. Oh, replied Naruto as a bit of fear crept into his voice. Do not worry, Naruto, she is one of the kindest people I know, said the Hokage in his grandfatherly voice. Really, come on old man, let's go. Naruto responded in an excited voice and started to pull the Hokage towards the park. After all, the last time the Hokage had taken him to meet one of the kindest people he knows, he had been introduced to the owner of a great ramen stand which he now goes to visits on a regular basis. The Hokage laughed with joy as he allowed himself to be dragged along. Konoha Park, where are they? Where are they? Asked Naruto as they arrived at the park. Calm down, Naruto, they should be here soon, replied the Hokage. How about we head on over to the swings while we wait? After a short play of the swings, Sarutobi brought it to a stop as he saw his friend approach. Hey old man, why did you stop? Asked Naruto. Well, remember how I told you we were meeting someone today? Yes. Well, she is right behind you, the Hokage stated with some mirth in his voice. Naruto quickly spun around and fell on his butt as he realized that there was indeed someone there. Naruto, may I introduce to you Haruka Hyuga? The Hokage introduced before noticing someone clinging to Haruka's dress. And would I be correct in assuming that the little girl clinging to your dress is your daughter Hinata? Naruto, hearing this, quickly went around Haruka to see that there was indeed a girl clinging to her mother's dress. Naruto approached the girl and, being the straightforward kind of guy he is, asked bluntly, do you want to help me build a sand castle? Why yes, replied Hinata shortly before she felt Naruto grab her arm and pull her towards the sandbox. So the Hokage asked after a moment of silence, shall we grab a nearby bench? I think we should, she replied as they headed over to a bench near the sandbox. So how are things at the Hyuga compound? Asked a curious Hokage. They're going fairly well for the most part, however I am a bit worried, stated a concerned Haruka. Hinata has recently come of age to start training within the clan, however I believe Hayashi is being a bit too strict with Hinata because he thinks she should be further along than she is. That does worry me a bit, but give him some time before you do anything. I am sure he just needs to adjust to the role of being a teacher as he figures out what works best. He replied with a bit of concern in his voice. Yeah, I guess you're right, but I am still worried. You're here, mother, so that is natural. But if it gets any worse, please feel free to come and see me, replied the Hokage in his grandfatherly tone. Now on to more important matters, stated the Sandaime as he turned towards the children. They seemed to be getting along fine. Haruka turned to see both Naruto and Hinata smiling as they continued to try and make their 2-foot castle even higher. Yes, they are. We should get them together on a regular basis. I think it would do some good for Hinata to have a friend outside of the clan, stated a slightly enthusiastic Haruka. I believe it would do Naruto some good as well. He is sorely lacking in the number of friends he has, the Sandaime said with a bit of sadness leaking into his voice. Now it is your turn not to worry, Hokage-sama. I am sure he will make some more friends, just give it some time. We both knew that getting him some friend was going to be hard from the beginning, assured Haruka as she turned to him. Thank you for your support. So how often do you think we should get them together? Asked Sarutobi looking back at Haruka. How about every Sunday? Not many people other than Ninja get out of bed early on Sundays, so we should be able to get them alone to have some fun together. That sounds like a good idea, the Hokage stated. They both turned their attention back to Naruto and Hinata just in time to see them place the last bit of sand in the sandbox onto the top of their 3-foot-high castle. Now that is an accomplishment, he called to the children. I have never before seen anyone use all of the sand in the sandbox to make a single castle. This caused both children to blush at the praise they received. Well, Naruto, say goodbye to your friend because we have to get going. It is almost time for lunch, stated the Hokage before turning to Haruka to say his goodbyes. Naruto quickly hugged and said goodbye to Hinata before heading after the Sanday, leaving a blushing girl in his wake. Ichiraku Ramen. Both Sarutobi and Naruto arrived at the ramen stand to find it empty. Quickly taking his seat, Naruto called out, "Hey old man Ichiraku, I am here for some ramen." "Ah, Naruto, I see you brought company with you this time," replied the stand owner. "So what type would you like today?" "I will have a miso please." "I want beef," stated Naruto as he started to look around. "Hey, is I am here?" "Yeah, I will see if she is willing to come out," replied Tucci before turning to the Sandaime. "He seems excitable today." "Yes, well, he made a new friend today." "Well then, I will just have to fetch I am so he can tell her all about it," Tucci responded with happiness in his voice. They were left momentarily alone as Tucci walked into the back room and sent I am out to them. "Hello, Hokage-sama," greeted I am before turning her full attention to Naruto. "So Naruto-kun, I hear you made a new friend today. What is their name?" asked I am. "How do you already know I made a friend? I just got here," asked a confused Naruto. "My dad just told me." "So what is their name?" replied I am, still curious as to who it could be. "Her name is Hinata and she has these strange white eyes with some purple in them," stated Naruto with a bit of awe. "They looked pretty." I am gave a squeal of delight before focusing her attention back onto Naruto, causing him to worry slightly. "So, our little Naruto-kun has met a girl with pretty eyes. Will we be seeing you walking around town with a new girlfriend soon?" asked I am, clearly excited. "But she is already my friend," said a clearly confused Naruto. "Do not worry about it, Naruto," said the Sandaime. "You are much too young to be thinking about what I am is trying to say." Whatever complaints Naruto might have had were quickly forgotten as the smell of a freshly made bowl of ramen reached his nose as it was placed in front of him. "So, do you think they will get together?" Tucci asked the Sandaime, clearly having heard the entire conversation. "I hope so," responded the third. "They make a cute couple." Konoha Forest. It had been 6 months since Naruto and Hinata first met, and every Sunday without fail Sarutobi and Haruka got them together to play. Today was not one of those days, but in Naruto's opinion it was still a great day. For you see, he had managed to go a whole day without upsetting any villagers and was currently lying down, looking at the stars above in silence. His silence was however broken by the sound of a broken tree branch, and with nothing better to do he decided to investigate. A quick jog in the direction of the sound revealed a man with a Kumo headband, but the most interesting thing in Naruto's opinion was the fact that he had a girl slung over his shoulder. The girl in question seemed to have dark blue hair, white eyes, and looked to be about his age. His mind started racing as he recognized the girl and turned his attention to the ninja. "Hey, what are you doing with Hinata-chan?" Naruto shouted. The ninja, having previously been ranting about rotting tree branches, was startled out of his thoughts at the sudden noise. The ninja turned to Naruto and said, "What does it look like, kid?" "I am kidnapping the Hyuga heiress." Now, although Naruto did not know what heiress meant, he certainly knew the meaning of kidnapping. Naruto, realizing what the ninja meant, responded with anger clearly evident in his voice, "You leave Hinata-chan alone, or I will make you wish you had." The Kumo-nin laughed, clearly amused that this kid in front of him thought he could defeat him. "You think you can defeat me? You are barely old enough to walk. There is no way in hell you could defeat me," stated the nin with finality. Naruto, having had enough, charged at the annoying ninja with all of the speed he could muster. Unfortunately for Naruto, it was not even worth the effort in the eyes of the Kumo-nin as he lifted his leg and kicked Naruto away once he was close. Naruto felt as if he had been hit by a rampaging bull. His chest hurt and his sides ached. He lifted his head to see the Kumo-nin checking on the condition of his prisoner. His anger rose as he pulled himself up. This ninja was likely going to hurt his friend if he did not do something to stop him. Naruto stood himself up once again, gaining the attention of the enemy nin in front of him. Red chakra began to leak from Naruto as his anger toward this man continued to rise. The Kumo-nin raises his head to look at Naruto, fixing his gaze upon Naruto's eyes. What he saw was truly frightening. Naruto's eyes had turned red with slits in the center, and his whisker marks widened as red chakra began to leak from the kid. Yet, even with these changes, the nin was not worried, for even though the kid was leaking killer intent, his chakra levels were barely genin level. Naruto once again charged the nin, his aches and pains having mysteriously disappeared. The nin, however, just brought his fist forward into Naruto's gut, knocking the wind out of him. Hyuga compound. Hayashi Hyuga was not a happy man. His daughter had just been kidnapped from within her own room, and to Hayashi's annoyance it looked like his daughter was taken without even a sign of there having been a struggle. He quickly informed a branch member to inform the Hokage before heading out to gather a search party. They quickly headed out with their Byakugan active, Hayashi himself heading in the direction he believed the kidnapper went. 5 minutes later he finally had the kidnapper in view, and having appeared to have stopped in his escape. Surveying the situation, he realized the kidnapper was a Kumo-nin, most likely from the delegation that came to discuss terms for a possible treaty. However, what caught his attention was that his daughter was hanging over the man's shoulder. Continuing his skin, he spotted the QB brat leaking red chakra and charging at the Nin only to get knocked down again. Spotting a pair of Umbu approaching, he quickly decided that if justice was going to be served to the Kumo Nin, then he was going to do it himself. Quickly exiting his hiding place, he attacked the Kumo Nin, mindless of the fact this act caused his daughter to hit the ground rather forcefully. Using his speed, he quickly disabled the Kumo Nin before delivering the final blow, causing the Nin to fall dead to the ground. Hayashi, having disposed of the foreign Nin, turned his attention to Naruto, who seemed to be leaning over his daughter's prone form, as he briefly contemplating the idea of using the situation to dispose of the QB brat as well. Any chance he had of actually going through with the idea were however cut off as the two Umbu he had spotted earlier finally arrived. Turning his attention to the two Umbu, he stated, "Bird, Cat, there is no need to worry, I have disposed of the kidnapper." Bird, being the one in charge of the two, spoke up, "Be that as it may, I am afraid we will all have to head to the Hokage's office to report the situation." "That is fine, Bird," replied Hayashi. "I am well aware of the procedure for this type of situation." The sudden sound of whimpering brought their attention away from their rather pointless conversation with Naruto. Having been knocked to the ground, Naruto struggled to get back up, only to watch in horror as his friend was sent forcefully to the ground. Quickly rushing to her side, he began to check her for injuries despite the pain he was in and the odd burning sensation that was starting to spread through his system. He continued to check her for the next few minutes, ignoring the one-side battle waging on behind him, until he was satisfied that she would not need to go to the hospital. With the knowledge that she was safe, Naruto lay down beside her and began to calm down. Naruto's calm state, however, was not to last long, as the burning sensation he felt continued to intensify as it spread through his body, causing him to begin whimpering as the pain became too much. Soon screams could be heard coming from Naruto, only to be silenced as he fell into blissful unconsciousness. Hospital. Sarutobi was not having a good week. First there was an attempted kidnapping on the Hyuga heiress. Then there was the uproar that Kumo was throwing about the death of their ambassador. However, neither of these compared in his opinion to the fact that Naruto Uzumaki is currently within the hospital. It was for this reason that he made his way up to a special isolation room within the hospital itself to consult with one of the few doctors he knew he could trust with Naruto's life. Upon arriving at the room, he briefly knocked before entering to see Naruto lying unconscious on the bed with red irritated skin all over his body. Taking a seat, he began to wait for Naruto's doctor to arrive. 5 short minutes later, a rather ruffled medical Nin walked in and addressed the Sandaime. "It is good to see you, Hokage-sama." "The same to you, Mommy," replied the Hokage. "Have you determined what is wrong with him?" "Yes, I believe I have," answered the doctor. "I believe that when he accessed the QB's chakra before his body could handle it, and although I do not know much about the seal, I believe that his body was supposed to over time develop the ability to limit the amount of chakra that he draws on." "So what does that mean for Naruto?" asked a concerned Hokage. "Well, here is where things get interesting. When he first came in, his and the QB's chakra were mixing and burning his body from the inside out. However, it seems that somehow in response to this, Naruto has begun to produce a new type of chakra to replace his old one, and that seems to be in direct opposition to the QB's," replied Mommy as she looked over her notes. "But would that not cause even more conflict between the two chakras?" asked the Hokage, not being sure what to think about this mess. "Normally I would agree with you on that, however it seems that this new chakra is layering itself around the seal, creating a barrier of sorts," answered Mommy. "What is even more interesting," continued Mommy, "is that Naruto's body seems to be at a stage of development where it has adapted to having the QB's chakra in his system, but it is not yet dependent on it, so we do not have to worry about any adverse effects other than the fact that he will likely never be able to QB's chakra again." After hearing this, Sarutobi has one concern on his mind as he stated, "If that is true, then I am not sure if Naruto will be able to survive in this village without the QB healing him." "Well, that is one area that I can put at ease for you. It seems that this kid is full of surprises because this new chakra of his seems to have taken the role of healing himself out of the QB's hands. You see, before he began switching to this new chakra, his body was beginning to look like a burnt with a high-power jutsu. Now it just looks like he has a rash, and it has only been 3 days since the change began," replied Mommy. "Well, that is some good news at least," replied the Sandaime, relief evident in his voice. "Yes, it is," stated Mommy. "Well, I guess the only thing left to inform you of would be that at his current rate of recovery, I expect for him to come out of his coma in about a week." "So when do you think he could have visitors?" asked the Sandaime. "In about another 3 days, I believe," answered Mommy. "Thank you." 1 week later, Hinata was currently sitting beside her friend waiting for her friend to wake up so that she could properly thank him. Her mother had explained to her that during the kidnap attempt, Naruto had attempted to save her, and although he did not succeed, he did stall long enough for help to arrive. She was also grateful for the fact that after help arrived, the very first thing he did was to check if she was alright. Naruto himself had woken the night before long enough for the mommy to realize he had come out of the coma, but went straight back to sleep. Now, however, was a different story. As he awoke, his mind, although foggy from just waking up, was still able to recognize the scent of lavender that he had come to associate with his friend. Without even opening his eyes, they greeted her. "Good morning, Hinata-chan." Hokage building. Haruka was growing steadily more concerned. It had been a month since Hinata was kidnapped, and Hayashi seemed to be getting worse in how he treated her. His words were harsher than they used to be, and he seemed to have convinced himself that Hinata should be doing better than her cousin simply because she is in the main branch. Haruka herself failed to see how he could believe that, as Hinata's cousin was both a year older than Hinata and seemed to be able to pick up on the Hyuga style of fighting rather easily. To make matters worse, Hayashi's style of teaching seems to only make it harder for Hinata to learn, not to mention making her life miserable within the compound. However, not everything in their lives caused Haruka concern, for she was currently expecting another child. She felt positively giddy over this new development, and just could not wait for it to arrive. For the time being, however, her excitement about this fact seemed small in comparison to her worries for Hinata's well-being, and it was for this reason that she was currently heading towards the Hokage's office in search of help. Hokage's office. The Sandaime was currently in his office having a great day, as he had just completed the paperwork for the incident the previous month, and was back to just the normal workload. Hearing a knock at the door, he called for them to come in. Haruka, I hear congratulations are in order, greeted the Sandaime. Thank you. I am 2 months along, replied Haruka. Well, that is good to hear. So what can I do for you today? Asked the Hokage. Do you remember several months back about our conversation about Hayashi? Asked Haruka as she sat down in a nearby chair. Yes, I had a feeling that we would soon be having this conversation, answered Sarutobi. Why do you say that? Asked Haruka with a curious expression on her face. Well, the last few times that I have seen Hinata, she seemed to get nervous when it was time for her to head home, replied the Hokage, showing his concern. Yes, well, the problem is that Hayashi's expectations of Hinata seem to be growing by the month, and has been harassing her for even the slightest mistake during her training. He is also becoming cold and distant towards her, and to a lesser degree, to me as well, Haruka stated with worry written on her face. That is something to be concerned about. Unfortunately, Konoha's laws clearly state that ninja clans within Konoha are allowed to govern their clan affairs and training as they see fit, stated the Hokage, so unless he becomes a problem to those outside of the clan, there is little I can do. I know, replied Haruka, that is why I came up with a plan of my own. Haruka paused and she looked around the room before turning back to the Sandaime. Could you put up those silencing seals of yours? Haruka asked. I would prefer if there was no change of this leaking back to my husband. The Hokage made a subtle gesture with his hand indicating for the hidden umbu in the room to leave before he went about the task of placing paper seals on the walls. Taking his seat once again, he lit his pipe before asking, so what is this plan? To put it simply, I want to leave Konoha with my daughters, replied Haruka, curious to hear the Sandaime's thoughts on the matter. And when would you be intending to leave? Asked the Hokage. About a month after I give birth, Haruka replied. The Sandaime considered this for a moment before replying, you do realize that the clan will attempt to bring you back? Yes, but not if they think we are dead, stated Haruka with confidence in her plan. Well, that would stop them from searching, the Sandaime admitted. Realizing that this would be the perfect opportunity to fulfill the promise he made to Naruto the day of his birth, he asked Haruka, would you be willing to take Naruto with you when you leave? Haruka was shocked by the sudden turn in the conversation but quickly recovered as she asked, why would you want me to take Naruto along? The Sandaime sighed as he answered, I made a promise to Naruto the day of his birth that I would find a way for him to be happy. Unfortunately, there is little chance of Naruto finding much happiness in this town, so I ask you again, will you please take Naruto with you? Haruka thought this over for a moment before replying, sure, I will take him along. Besides, I am sure Hinata would prefer to have her best friend come with her. Opening one of the drawers in his desk, the Sandaime proceeded to pull out a fresh piece of paper before asking, so how do you intend to pull this off? Konoha Park. It had been 3 months since her discussion with the Hokage, and Haruka felt she had made the right choice. Hayashi had not calmed down in his handling of Hinata, and now it seemed to spill over towards Haruka. He seemed to believe that Haruka was the cause of Hinata's lack of progress and is causing her to become soft. In a sense, this was true, as Hinata had inherited her mother's kind personality. But the simple fact of the matter was that Hayashi simply refused to believe that he could achieve better results by simply correcting Hinata's movements instead of berating her. And with those thoughts, Haruka continued to make her way through the local park as she and her daughter went to once again meet up with Naruto and the Hokage for their weekly get-together. Upon reaching the playground, Naruto quickly spotted them and came over to greet them both with a hug before dragging Hinata off to play. Haruka walked over to the Sandaime and took a seat as she greeted him. Good morning. Good morning, greeted Sarutobi. How are the preparations coming? They're coming along fairly well. I have completed making copies of the clan's basic jutsu scrolls, and I have finished gathering only one complete set of clothing for each of us, as it would be a better idea to buy the rest outside of Konoha. The only thing left for me to do is find someone outside of Konoha who is willing to have us stay with them until we decide where we want to go, replied Haruka. Well, I think I can help you with that. I know of a retired Konoha shinobi in Tea Country who would enjoy the company. In fact, I think you know of her. She was an orphan named Rin, stated the Sandaime. Rin, is she the one that used to have the crush on Kakashi? Asked Haruka. Yes, that is her, and she got over that crush shortly after she retired, replied Sarutobi. I thought she was dead, stated a curious Haruka. Well, no, she just did not have many people she wanted to keep in touch with, so people just assumed she had passed on, replied the Sandaime. Well, if you think she can be trusted, then I have no objections, stated Haruka. She is one of the few I would be willing to trust Naruto's well-being with, assured the Sandaime. After a moment of silence, Haruka asked, so how are things going on your end? It has been going fairly smoothly, actually. I have obtained scrolls on the Academy Jutsus, some chakra control exercises, and a few basic elemental jutsu. There are also a few sets of weights, but nothing too heavy as they are still fairly young. Lastly, I have also included a few little extras that I think might come in handy," answered the Hokage. "What type of extras did you include?" asked Haruka, showing her curiosity. "Well, I included a water-breathing jutsu, instructions for making storage and exploding seals, the shadow clone jutsu, which they most likely will not be ready for any time soon. There are a few other things, but nothing harmful," replied the Sandaime. "I have also put aside some money for you. It is not much, it should be enough to buy some new sets of clothes as well as provide food for a month. By then hopefully you would have found some way to earn money," continued the Sandaime. "Thank you, I appreciate that," replied Haruka. Konoha Hospital. Haruka was currently in the Konoha Hospital and had been for the past week. It turned out that all her concern and worries were right on the money, as you see from what she has been told. She had been given a slow-acting poison by her husband. Its effects were not noticeable at first, but over time, it had gotten to the stage that she was getting noticeably exhausted after light sparring sessions. The first time it happened, she had gone to clan medics and was told that they could find nothing wrong with her. The second time she was closer to the Konoha Hospital, so she got checked out there, but they also found nothing. After the fifth time, she decided that she had to find out what was wrong, as she did not want to risk losing her opportunity to get her daughters out of Konoha. So with that in mind, she had gone directly to the Hokage in search of help. The Sandaime, as always, had been very accommodating. He had set up the room normally reserved for Naruto and got some of his best and most trusted medics to find out what was wrong with her. It had taken an hour just to find out that the cause of her exhaustion was because of a poison, and another hour to find a way to remove it. The poison itself was discovered to slowly eat away at the blood, reducing the level of oxygen it can hold, and breaks down into components naturally found within the bloodstream. Initially, they had no idea who would want to poison Haruka, but after being informed of the consequences of giving birth with such a condition, they had a fairly good idea. For you see, if she had given birth with the poison still in her system, she would have died from the stress of childbirth while still allowing her to give birth to safely bring her baby into the world. In the end, they were both, Haruka and the Sandaime, were very happy that they had taken their respective actions. For now, however, Haruka was expecting to give birth within the next few days, and they planned to use the situation to their advantage. Hokage's office. The Sandaime was currently in his office looking across his desk at Naruto and Hinata. With their schedule moved forwards, both Haruka and Sarutobi believed it was time to bring Naruto and Hinata in on their plans, and it was left to Sarutobi to inform them of what was going on. "Naruto, Hinata, I believe you would like to know why you are here," stated the third, earning a yes from Naruto and a simple nod from Hinata. "Well, Hinata, I should start by telling you that you, your mother, and your baby sister will soon be leaving Konoha," stated Sarutobi. Hinata looked shocked at the news, while Naruto looked upset, which was soon confirmed as he stood up and shouted that he did not want her to leave, before falling back down to his seat looking as if his world was collapsing in on him. The third looked straight at Naruto before saying, "There is no need to worry, Naruto, you will be going with them." That statement brought a smile to both of their faces before Naruto asked the obvious question, "Why are we leaving?" "Well, Hinata, there are 3 reasons why you will be leaving. The first is that your father has been very mean to both you and your mother. The second is so that your mother will be able to teach you instead of your father, and the third is that your father recently tried to kill your mother," said the Sandaime a bit uncomfortably. This last piece of information caused both children to gasp before Hinata started to cry and Naruto to hug her, not really knowing how to comfort the crying girl. Before she could get lost in her tears, however, the Sandaime spoke. "There is no reason to worry about your mother, Hinata. She is fine and is in the hospital preparing to give you your new baby sister." This seemed to calm Hinata down, so he continued with his explanation. "Naruto, the reason you will be going with them is because with the way the village treats you, I do not think you will be able to be very happy here." Naruto for a moment looked like he was going to argue, but even he had to concede to the fact that his has a hard time trying to find reasons to smile. Seeing Naruto suddenly go quiet felt to Sarutobi like something that should never happen. However, there were still some things he needed to know, and he figured that this would be one of the better times to do it, considering he would soon be far away from the village. The third quietly cleared his throat before he pressed on Naruto. "There are a few things that I need to explain to you, and I am sure you will not like some of them, but I believe you are old enough to understand why they were kept from you." This seemed to make Naruto both curious and worried about what he was going to be told. The third continued, knowing that it needed to be said. "The first thing I need to tell you is that I know why the villagers attack you." This caused an immediate reaction as Naruto jumped to his feet and yelled, "What? Why did you not tell me?" Jumping in quickly to prevent Naruto from building up steam, he said, "It is because you were too young to fully understand." This seemed to calm Naruto down slightly, but it was obvious that he was still angry. "You see, on the day of your birth the 9-tailed fox Kyuubi attacked the village and that the 4th Hokage defeated him, which I am sure you know. What you do not know is that the 4th was unable to kill the Kyuubi, so he had to seal it away, but the only thing strong enough to hold the Kyuubi is a newborn child. That night, Naruto, you were the child he chose to seal it in," explained the third before waiting to see what Naruto thought of this new development. After a moment, after the initial shock began to wear off, Naruto asked in a quiet voice, "Am I the Kyuubi?" Sarutobi was glad for this question, as it showed that the villages had not yet damaged Naruto's mind too badly. Snapping himself out of his thoughts, he answered, "No, you are not the Kyuubi. It is just trapped inside you." Naruto let out the breath he was holding in obvious relief. I think that you should also know that those too young to remember the incident do not know about this because of a law I made preventing it. The Sandaime allowed this last piece of information sink in before deciding it was time to continue. Naruto, if you are ready, there are still things I need to tell you. Naruto was currently wishing for this to be over already, but this wish was not granted. Instead, he received the next best thing. Hinata had decided that this was not something he should be going through alone, and had moved her chair closer to him so that she could hold him close. Hinata throughout this part of the conversation had been silent, but the emotions on her face spoke volumes about what she was thinking about. When the Hokage had said that Naruto was attacked by the villagers, she had been shocked. How could they do such a thing? When she heard that the Kyuubi was not killed, she became worried as to where it went, and if it might come back. However, upon hearing that it was sealed into Naruto, she knew she was safe. After all, she had seen some shinobi sealing things in scrolls and figured it was the same thing. Upon hearing Naruto ask if he was the Kyuubi, she just thought it was a dumb question. After all, how could someone as nice as Naruto ever be considered a demon? Thinking that if the rest of what the Sandaime is as big as what he has already revealed, then Naruto might need some comfort, so she quietly moved her chair closer to him and wrapped her arms around him and resolved herself to just listen. The Hokage smiled at the gesture, thinking that if this kept up, then they would be together for a long time. Seeing as they were both paying attention again, he continued on. The second thing I have kept from you is the identity of your parents. Seeing Naruto about to add his thoughts to the conversation, he hurried to explain the reason this was kept from you is that if this information had gotten out, you would have been dead within a week. Naruto's outburst stopped dead in its tracks at hearing that. Now, your mother's name was Kushina Uzumaki and was originally from Whirlpool, and before you ask, as far as we know, she was the only Uzumaki to survive. As for your father, well, there is a picture of him on the wall here. Say hello to Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage. To say Naruto and Hinata were shocked would be an understatement of the century. Their mouths were open, their eyes bulged, and Sarutobi was also being to believe that they had lost the ability to think. Well, at least until they began to move again. As Naruto looked at the picture, he let a smile cross his face. He finally knew who his parents were. However, his smile began to fade as he realized something. His father was the one to seal the Kyuubi inside him. Turning back to the Hokage, he asked, why did my dad choose to seal the Kyuubi in me? Hearing this, the Hokage answered it was simply because you were his son. He was the kind of guy who would not ask someone to do something he was not willing to do himself. Looking back at the portrait, Naruto said solemnly, I can believe that. I think I would have done the same. Deciding it was time to snap Naruto out of his glum mood, Sarutobi spoke, well, the last thing for me to do before we discuss how you are leaving is for me to give you this scroll. Your father asked me to give it to you when I thought you were ready. Naruto gingerly took the scroll from the third and began to read. Dear Naruto, I am sorry for what I am about to do to you. The Kyuubi is on its way to Konoha, and the only way I have found to stop it is to seal it away. Unfortunately, you are the only one I am even willing to consider sealing it in, as I am unwilling to ask another to make the sacrifice. So for that I am sorry. Now, that being said, I also need to say this in case Sarutobi has been unable to convince you, you are not the Kyuubi, you are just its container. In case you have not worked it out yet and have not been told, I am the Yondaime Hokage and also your father. Now that that is out of the way, I want you to know that your mother and I love you very much and would have loved to see how you turn out. Unfortunately, this is no longer an option, so we have done the next best thing. Sealed in the bottom of this scroll are instructions for my two most famous jutsu along with your mother's family sword. We only make two requests of you. The first is that you never use the jutsu that earned me the title of the Yellow Flash, as you will instantly gain too many enemies to be able to live a peaceful life. You may however modify it however you wish. Who knows what you might come up with. The second is that you do not sell the sword, as it has been in your mother's family for generations, and it is one of the few swords that can be used against the Kusanagi and other similar swords. Now for some parting words. Find someone you care for with all your heart, and protect them with your life. Love, Minato Namikaze, the Yondaime Hokage. By the end of the letter, Naruto was crying tears of joy. For today, not only had he found out who his parents were, but he had undeniable evidence that his parents loved him. The third, for his part, just sat and watched as Naruto cried into Hinata's shoulder until he finally calmed enough to continue. It appears that the only thing left to do now is to discuss how we are going to get you out of this town, stated the Hokage before beginning to explain exactly what they each need to do. Hokage's office. Sarutobi was currently sitting in his office contemplating what the effects of Haruka's plans could mean for both the village and Haruka's small leaving party. Considering what was about to take place over the next few days, he was certain that it would leave no small dent in history. After all, the village was soon to believe the so-called demon brat to be dead. The head of the Hyuga clan was about to lose his wife, and Hyuga clan as a whole was about to lose both of its heirs. Now, however, was not the time to dwell on these things, as he needed to prepare. There were 4 stages to the plan they had agreed upon. The first was to inform the children of what was to take place, and to have them pack only their most precious belongings. The second involved tricking the village into attacking and killing what they believed to be Naruto, and in the process, Hinata is accidentally killed. Third, is to make Hayashi Hyuga believe that his wife died in childbirth, and that this second heir did not survive. Lastly, have all 4 of them leave town and meet up with Rin to begin their new life. In theory it sounded like a simple plan, and in reality some of it was. He had already informed the children of what was to happen, and they had already prepared most of the supplies they would need for their journey. Steps 2 and 3, however, were not quite so simple to work out, but being the hokage had its advantages. One of these was access to the Forbidden Scroll. As hokage, he was required to know what the Forbidden Scroll contained in case it was to ever be used against the village. It was for this reason that he knew of the perfect solution to the second phase of the plan. The solution itself was in the form of a clone jutsu, and its purpose. As everyone knows, the various clone jutsus were created to perform a specific purpose. The Shadow Clone Jutsu was designed primarily as a scouting jutsu, as its memories returned to the user, while the Water Clone Jutsu was designed to lend a hand in battle. The clone jutsu he found was called the Decoy Clone. Its sole purpose, from what he could tell, was for the sole purpose of dying. When he first saw the jutsu, he was unable to work out exactly why a ninja would bother to create such a jutsu, as it was unable to fool a ninja into believing that another ninja was dead once it was killed. There were 3 reasons for this. The first was that any clone created with the jutsu lacked the physical strength of the ninja it was cloned from. The second was because it was unable to use jutsu and therefore did not make a convincing target. Lastly, the clone only lasted 6 hours before it crumbled to dust, so even if a ninja was convinced that he killed his target, he would be in for an unexpected surprise when the evidence of his success crumbled to dust before his eyes. It was not until a few weeks after that he realized the true purpose of the clone. It was designed to create a clone of a civilian so that if a ninja knew he was being targeted, he would at least be able to ensure his family's safety. It was this fact that convinced Sarutobi that it was the perfect jutsu for the second stage of the plan. After all, a 5-year-old was not expected to be strong or able to use jutsu. Leaving his office behind, he headed to the hidden basement of the Hokage building to begin the preparations. Hokage building basement. It was a little-known fact that the Hokage building even had a basement, and even less knew how to access it, so in the Hokage's opinion it would be the perfect place to set the second stage of Haruka's plan into action. He had just finished setting up for the task ahead. He had gathered 2 packets of blood from the hospital. This allowed the clones to bleed normally after they had been made. A large pile of dirt, as the technique is similar to an earth clone, and drawn a seal array on the floor as to allow the user of the jutsu to clone someone other than himself. All he had to do now is create the clones. Konoha streets. It was late at night, and a fake Naruto could be seen running through the streets towards trying to get to the orphanage before they kicked him out for the night. Taking a sharp turn and without looking where he was going, he crashed into a drunken man near one of the busiest bars in Konoha. "I am sorry, sir. I was not looking where I was going," said Naruto. That is quite all the drunken man started to say before he noticed who it was that crashed into him. Naruto started to look fearful as he heard the man go silent, only to have his fears confirmed when the man next spoke. "So you thought you would try to attack me, demon," stated the drunken man, drawing the attention of some of the other villagers. "Well, you thought wrong. I am going to give you the eating of your life." Naruto turned and began run away, only to be chased by the drunken man, who now had some others following, attempting to get in on the action. Naruto was seen running through the village trying to get away from the villages before turning and heading towards the forest. Deciding that it would be easier to dispose of the Kyuubi if they were not in town, they were all too eager to follow. Konoha Forest. The fake Hinata was laying on the ground of one of the training grounds in Konoha, waiting to fulfill her role in the events to come. Getting off the ground, she saw a figure rapidly approaching in the distance, and began to play her part. Acting as if she had just waken up, she walked towards the figure, calling out, "Naruto-kun, what are you doing out here so late?" Naruto, who had not been paying attention to where he was going, turned to look in front of himself just before crashing into Hinata, knocking them both to the ground. They lay that way for a moment, which was all of the time needed for the mob of drunken villagers to catch up. Tossing the Hyuga girl aside, the mob began to beat and stab Naruto as he began to cry and ask for them to stop. Hinata, unable to stand watching this happen, moved to the center of the mob before tripping and falling into the path of a knife that was heading straight for Naruto, causing a large gash to appear along her side. Instantly the crowd stopped in shock at seeing the body of the Hyuga heiress fall on top of the demon brat with a large wound in her side. They, however, were not given enough time, as the Hokage arrived at the scene with a group of Anbu, who took them into custody, as the Hokage created a clone and personally carried both of the injured away. Konoha Hospital. Hayashi Hyuga was not happy, as he had been called out of this home in the middle of the night only to be informed that his daughter was in the hospital, and was not expected to survive. The fact that his daughter was on death row did not bother the man at all. In fact, he would rather see her dead so that she could no longer disgrace the Hyuga name. The only reason he had come was because he had to keep up appearances of being a caring father, even if it was not true. Arriving at the room, he made it just in time to see a group of medics exit the room with a somber expression on their faces. One of the medics, having seen Hayashi, stopped the Hyuga head in his tracks. "Hyuga-sama," he began, "I am afraid that she did not make it." Hayashi was glad for this development, but deciding that it was best to maintain appearances, asked how did she die. "She received a large knife wound when she attempted to stop a mob from hurting the demon brat," replied the medic. Hayashi was honestly surprised at this development, but she was still worthless in his eyes, so he shrugged it off. Dismissing the medics, he made his way to the room with his daughter and spent a few minutes just standing around. After all, it would be hard to convince anyone that he had cared for his daughter if he did not at least make it look like he spent some time grieving. Leaving the room, he approached a nearby medic and asked to have the body cremated and have the remains sent to his residence. All members of the Hyuga are after all cremated to prevent their bodies from revealing any secrets. Konoha Hospital Morgue. Sarutobi was currently celebrating his apparent ability to pull the wool over Hayashi's eyes, but also being mindful of the fact that he had a task to do. Hayashi had fallen for the bait, and had as expected had asked for Hinata to be cremated. Having previously expected this, Sarutobi was prepared and was currently ensuring the success of this part of the plan by replacing the fake body in the cremator with an appropriate amount of wood to replace it. After the fake body would soon disappear and Hayashi was expecting to see ash in Hinata's urn and not dust. Konoha Cemetery. News spread fast in Konoha, and that was especially so when that news just happened to be that the village's demon brat had been killed. Currently, almost the entire village was celebrating the Naruto's death in one way or another, but very few even showed up to his funeral to pay their respects. Among the few that turned up were Sarutobi, Tochi Ichiraku and his daughter, a chunin named Kurenai who had heard many things about him from Haruka, and a few of the Umbu that had guarded him throughout his life. Sarutobi made a mental note of the people who attended so that maybe one day they would be able to know the truth about what happened. For now though, the Sanine was glad that Naruto at least had this many people who cared about him. Hokage building basement. Since the cloning done by the Hokage, both Naruto and Hinata had remained in the basement of the Hokage building so that they do not ruin the plan. They did not mind, however, as it would only be a few days before they leave and at least they could keep each other company. That is not to say that they had nothing to do, because the Hokage had been considerate enough to place some games and a TV within the room. For now though, they were just both content in the knowledge that they would soon be living happily someplace far away from Konoha. Haruka's hospital room. It had been 2 days since Naruto's funeral and Sarutobi was beginning to have second thoughts. It was not because he did not think it would work, or that it was not the right thing to do, but because Haruka had gone into labor and was currently squeezing the life out of his arms, yelling a string of curses about the uselessness of men that would make a sailor green with envy. On the plus side, however, they had everything set into motion to allow for the group to leave the next morning and use hospital room. Haruka had given birth to her new baby daughter, Hanabi, just a few short hours ago with the help of a doctor named Mami. Being one of the Hokage's most trusted medics, Mami had been let in on the plan so that she could help switch Haruka and Hanabi with clones. It was for this reason that they were now in one of the unused hospital rooms, which according to the hospital records had suffered from the effects of a burst water pipe, causing the room to be unsafe to use until fixed. The actual truth of the matter was that both Mami and the Sandaime had just filed the paperwork and boarded up the room so that the Sandaime could use the room to perform the decoy clone jutsu. The Sandaime double-checked the modified seals he had drawn for the jutsu. The reason for the modification of the jutsu was because, unlike the previous time he performed the jutsu, he wanted the clones to look as if they had from natural causes rather than external injuries. So it was for this reason that he had to change the seals slightly, causing the summoned clones to already be dead when summoned. Having finished checking the seals, he began the jutsu. Konoha's hospital. Sarutobi and Mami were currently trying to navigate through the halls of the hospital with 2 dead bodies. They had run into an unexpected problem, but it was one they should have foreseen. After all, they needed to transport dead bodies through the frequently used corridors of the building. Luckily, there was a simple solution. Sarutobi would use a henge to transform himself into a nameless doctor before casting a genjutsu to make those around him believe that they were just moving a sleeping patient. Making it to Haruka's official hospital room, they unloaded the 2 bodies onto the hospital bed. Canceling the genjutsu, Sarutobi began to head back to Haruka so that he could clean away the evidence of the clone, leaving Mami to inform Hayashi of the bad news. Hyuga compound. Hayashi just received the most devastating and infuriating news he could imagine. His wife had just died, but that is not what had him upset. It turned out that in her death she had taken her newborn child with her. This development ruined his plans to raise a child without the influences of having such a soft mother. To make matters worse, it was most likely his fault that this had happened, and now he did not even have a wife to give him another child. Realizing the uselessness of dwelling on such events, he decided that a change of plans were in order, and that he would have to raise his firstborn daughter to be strong. Or at least that would have been his plan had she not also died, leaving him without an heir. Shaking himself out of his thoughts, he began to head towards the Konoha hospital. He would have time to consider his options later, but for now he needed to keep up appearances to avoid possible suspicion. Konoha Hospital Morgue. Sarutobi was once again in the Konoha morgue, replacing the 2 dead clones with wood. The Hyuga head had once again asked for the bodies to be incinerated, however this time, according to Mami, he seemed to be more insistent on it happening sooner rather than later. Sarutobi guessed it was because Hayashi wanted to prevent any possible chance that his involvement in their deaths from coming to light. This was something Sarutobi was all too eager to help with, for although he did not like the fact that Hayashi tried to kill his wife, it certainly helped in keeping Hayashi's suspicion away from what truly happened. Having finished the task at hand, it was time to bring his plan to its conclusion. Hokage's office. It was a relatively easy task to sneak a supposedly dead person out of the hospital. All they really had to do was employ a simple henge to change Haruka's hair and eyes and use a low-level genjutsu to hide Hanabi's eyes. They entered the Hokage's office and took a seat as it was time to take care of the final details before they go collect the kids. So how are you feeling? It has got to be exhausting using your chakra so soon after giving birth, asked the Hokage. Yes, it is, but to be honest, we were expecting it to happen, answered Haruka. Well, let us move on to business, shall we? Have you decided on what your new family name will be? asked the Sandaime as he reached for the group's new identification papers. I have, and I would like to be Yasuharu, meaning peaceful spring, answered Haruka. I think it is perfect for you and your daughters, considering you are some of the kindest people I know, stated the Sandaime as he began to fill in the papers. Thank you, replied Haruka. Well, seeing as Naruto has already decided to just keep his last name blank for the time being, I guess we can move on, stated the Sandaime. I have been in contact with Rin the Hokage, continued. She has informed me that she will be waiting in a clearing 2 kilometers from the main gate on the way to Otafukagai, so you should have little problem finding her. Well, that is some good news. Has she planned out the trip yet, or is she going to wait until we get there? Asked Haruka. We decided that it would be a good idea to plan out the trip first so that you could be out of the area as soon as possible, answered the Hokage. I guess that is a good idea. So what exactly is the plan? Asked Haruka. As soon as you show up, she plans to head out straight away toward Otafukagai and spend a few nights there gathering whatever supplies you need before heading towards the border. After that, she plans to rest at the Chami's tea house for a while before heading towards her home, answered the third. That sounds good to me. Is there anything else before we leave? Asked Haruka. Yes, just one last thing, the third stated as he reached into his desk and pulled out a backpack. I went and placed everything that you were planning on taking into the sealing scrolls within this backpack, so that should make it easier for you carry everything while leaving your arms free to hold on to Hanabi. Thank you, replied a thankful Haruka. Hokage building basement. Upon reaching the basement of the Hokage building, Haruka and the Sandaime were greeted to the sight of Naruto and Hinata sleeping while huddled up together between 2 fully open sleeping bags, using one as a bed and the other as a blanket. Seeing this, the third asked with some humor in his voice, how long do you think it will be before you have to give them the talk? Hopefully it will not be for a long time, stated Haruka in a tone that clearly said she was not looking forward to it. Well, let us wake these 2 up so we can continue with the plan, the third stated before proceeding to do just that. Having woken up the 2 children, Sarutobi watched as they excitedly greeted Haruka and began to coo over Hanabi. Finally, seeing the kids calm down, Sarutobi began to perform a series of low-level genjutsus to change their appearances, while Haruka used a henge to change herself before putting some makeup over Naruto's whiskers. They then each went behind a screen and changed their outfits so that they would not stand out. In the end, they looked like an ordinary family, Naruto having his hair changed to a brown and his eyes turned to green while he wore a simple t-shirt with a pair of long pants. The girls, however, were wearing dresses, with brown hair and their eyes having been changed to blue. Satisfied with the changes, they began to head out of town to meet up with Rin. Forest clearing. It had been 2 hours since they had left Konoha and they had finally reached the clearing where they were supposed to meet Rin. Walking into the clearing, they spotted a young woman sitting up against a tree as if she had fallen asleep that way. As if able to sense someone enter the clearing, the woman looked up towards the group and asked, "Would you happen to be Haruka by any chance?" Hearing this, Haruka smiled and answered, "Yes, I am." "Well, it is nice to meet you, Haruka. My name is Rin," stated Rin while offering her hand to shake. Taking the offered hand, Haruka replied, "It is nice to meet you, Rin, and thank you for offering to allow us to stay with you." "Think nothing of it," stated Rin before asking, "So, what are the names of your children?" "Well, the little one in my arms is Hanabi, and the cute girl beside me is Hinata," Haruka replied with a smile, earning a blush from Hinata. "Hello," Hinata greeted Rin. "Hello," replied Hinata in a soft voice. Turning to the boy standing near Hinata, Rin asked, "Hello, and what might your name be?" Naruto had strangely remained silent up until now, trying to decide if she was trustworthy. Upon being asked the question, though, he seemed to reach a decision as he answered in his usual energetic voice, "Hello, my name is Naruto." "Well, Naruto, it is nice to meet you," replied Rin, earning a smile in response. Deciding that it was time to get going, Rin turned back to Haruka once again. "Well, now that we have gotten introductions out of the way, I believe it is time to get going if we intend to reach Otafukagai tonight," Rin stated. "Yes, you're right. It will already be dark by the time we arrive, and I do not really want to spend the night under the stars with Hanabi just yet," replied Haruka. "You do not need to worry about that. I have already rented some rooms for us for when we arrive," stated Rin. "That is good to know," replied Haruka. Hotel room. They had arrived at the town shortly after getting dark, but fortunately there was a full moon out tonight, so they were able to see clearly. Shortly after arriving, they had checked into their hotel and set about getting ready for a good night's sleep. However, now it was morning and there was only one thing on Rin's mind as she set about waking everyone up, and that was shopping. "Okay, everyone out of bed. It is time to do some shopping," called Rin as she went about shaking everyone awake. "What is the rush?" asked Haruka as she got out of bed. "There is no rush, but I figured that everyone would like to have some new clothes by the end of the day because of the lack of clothes that you each brought along," answered Rin as she headed over to get a stubborn Naruto out of bed. "Come on, Naruto, out of bed, we have plenty to do today," stated Rin as she tried to shake Naruto awake. This action, however, only caused Naruto to wave an arm wildly at Rin while mumbling about annoying landlords. "Does anyone know how to wake this guy up?" asked Rin as she stared. Hinata walked up to Naruto and gently shook him as said, "Naruto, it is time to get up." This gentle approach of Hinata seemed to work slightly as Naruto's eyes slowly opened before he reached up and pulled a blushing girl onto the bed with him. Naruto began to stare blankly at Hinata for a moment as his mind tried to process what was in front of him. Finally, snapping out of his dazed state, he stated, "Good morning, Hinata-chan. Why are you in my bed? You pulled me onto your bed when I tried to wake you up," answered a still blushing Hinata. "Oh, sorry," stated Naruto. Seeing that the scene before her had come to a conclusion, Rin decided that it was time to get on with the day's activities. Come on, you two, if you are done staring at each other, we need to get ready. We have a lot to do today, stated Rin as she headed to the kitchen, leaving behind two blushing children. 1 hour later, they were heading out the door. Ninja equipment store. It had been 2 hours since they had left the hotel room, and they had already gone to a civilian clothing store. Naruto had no idea it could take that long to decide on what clothes they should buy. However, after seeing the end result of all of the effort put into searching the various racks of clothes, he had to admit that it was worth it. Now, however, they were entering one of Rin's favorite ninja stores. It may not have been the most well-known store Otafukugai, but upon entering the store it was obvious that it supplied high-quality equipment for almost all areas of ninja life. Alright, you two, Haruka stated to Naruto and Hinata shortly after arriving at Rin's place. We are going to start you education, but it's going to be a while before we start teaching you any too serious. With that being said, it does not mean we cannot search for things we might like to have or use so that we can save ourselves a trip. Haruka proceeded to then send the two to look around the shop while they went in search of the various items that they would need. An hour later, they walked out of the store having brought their basic ninja tools and equipment, but they also walked out with a few scrolls on chakra control and some extra sealing scrolls. Hobby shop. After having some lunch, Rin had led the group to a hobby shop near the center of town. Why did you lead us to this store? Asked a curious Haruka. Well, I live a fair distance from most towns, so it can get a bit boring at times. So keeping this in mind, I figured that it would be a good idea to have a few hobbies to keep us occupied, replied Rin. That does sound like a good idea, stated Haruka. Upon entering the shop, they were amazed at the range of items on display. They had everything from paint to gardening supplies. Rin, how do you find these places? So far today, every shop you have led us to has had a lot of high-quality products, Haruka asked. Well, when I first came to this town to do some shopping, I decided that I would just spend a couple of days looking at the shops and what they each have. I guess it paid off in the end though, as I was able to find some high-quality shops that I would not have paid much attention to otherwise, answered Rin. Since this was the last stop for the day, they had plenty of time to look around, and after an hour of looking around, they had each found their new hobbies. Haruka had decided to take up painting again. She had given it up after becoming a mother because, combined with the demands of the clan and the occasional mission for the village, she rarely had enough time to just sit down in a quiet spot and just paint. Hinata decided to take up flower pressing after remembering some of the beautiful flowers she had seen around Konoha. Naruto decided that he would like to do some gardening and picked out some flower seeds, which delighted Hinata after she found out. Rin herself did not pick out any new hobbies for herself, but she did for some reason have a large bag filled with a supply of various seeds. Having picked out what they wanted, they proceeded to head to the counter to pay for their purchases. Hotel room. Arriving back at their hotel rooms, Rin began to seal their purchased items into the sealing scrolls they brought. Naruto, being the curious person he is, asked Rin, "What is in the bag you brought?" "Ah, that is a bag of seeds. I have a fairly decent-sized piece of land, and rather than allow it to go to waste, I like to plant some seasonal vegetables to sell, and so that I do not have to go to town as often," Rin answered. "And what about you? Why did you decide to get gardening supplies?" asked Rin. "Well, back in Konoha, old man Hokage gave me some seeds as a birthday present so that I would have something to do. After I started to grow them, I found that I like to look after them, so I figured that I could try looking after some other plants as well," answered Naruto. "So what type of seeds were they?" asked Rin, having already picked up on the fact that he had brought them with him. "I think he said they were called chakra trees or something like that," replied Naruto. "Chakra trees, those are some rare trees. I guess it just goes to show you how much the Hokage cares about you," stated Rin with a bit of surprise in her voice. "Thank you," replied Naruto. Chimi's tea house. It had been a week since they had left Otafukugai, and they had finally reached the border between Fire Country and Tea Country. It had been a rather uneventful trip. They had encountered a small group of ninja at one point, but they had not even been spared a second glance as the ninja raced by. They were currently at the Chimi's tea house just inside Tea Country, and they could not have been happier. They could now honestly say that they knew why Rin chose to stop at this particular place during their trip. It was because of the cakes and muffins that they served here. They were absolutely delicious and served to relieve their stress from the long journey. Buying a few extras to have during their trip, they proceeded to head out once again. A valley. It had been half a week of traveling down the west coast of Tea Country, and they had finally reached their destination. They were coming up the last ridge to the entrance of the valley that Rin lived in, and the sight that greeted them was simply amazing. The valley itself went on for a few kilometers and had a small stream running its entire length. The valley was about 500 meters across, with a gentle slope leading from the center to the edges, which promptly became near vertical cliffs going straight up for about 50 meters. Within the valley was a lush forest with the occasional clearing that stretched for about 100 meters or so, and several of the trees throughout the valley were in flower, lighting up the forest with reds, yellows, and blues. Looking at the sight before them, Naruto spoke the one word that was on everyone's minds: wow. "I know it is amazing. It has to be one of the better places to live in Tea Country, but because of the difficulties in transporting supplies in and out of the area, few people ever come to live here, allowing the place to remain beautiful," stated Rin. They remained to admire the beauty for a moment longer before Rin spoke. "Well, no time to rest. It is just a short walk from here. My house is in the third clearing along Rin's home." Arriving at the clearing, they quickly entered the house, and they each pulled themselves up a seat. The house was a simple one-story house with 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, kitchen, dining room, study and a lounge room. Okay, before we do anything else I think we should decide on the living arrangements. That way we have somewhere to collapse the moment we get tired," stated Rin. "That sounds like a good idea. I am feeling rather exhausted from the trip considering we have been traveling several hours a day for the past 2 weeks," replied Haruka. "Alright, this house has 3 bedrooms, so the way I see it is that seeing as I already have one, I believe Haruka and Hanabi should share one of them, and Naruto and Hinata should have the other. That way Haruka will not have to wake anyone if she needs to attend to Hanabi," stated Rin. "That sounds alright, so which room is which?" asked Haruka. "Well, the first door on the left will be Naruto and Hinata's room, while you and Hanabi can have the second one. My room, on the other hand, can be found at the end of the hallway. You also will not have to worry about there being enough beds in the house. I already took care of that the moment I agreed to let you live here," answered Rin. "Okay, that sounds good," replied Haruka. Rin turned to Naruto and Hinata before she continued. "The next thing on the agenda is your education. Seeing as we are so far away from the nearest school, we are going to have to teach you ourselves." Turning back to Haruka, she asked, "What do you think we should teach them?" "Things like reading, writing and maths are a given, but what else do you think they need to know?" Thinking for a moment, Haruka replied, "Well, we are going to have to teach Naruto how to access his chakra, and they are both going to have to learn the control exercises. After all, the earlier they learn control, the easier it will be to control their chakra as their reserves expand." Turning to Naruto and Hinata, Rin asked, "Do you two know how to swim?" Receiving a no from both, she continued, "Well, it seems that we will also need to teach you how to do that. They also need to learn how to cook. After all, we will not always be around to do it for them," stated Haruka. "That's true. So is that everything?" asked Rin. "Yes, or at least everything that cannot wait until after they have learned what we have already thought of," replied Haruka. "Well, I vote we wait until tomorrow to unpack everything because I am exhausted," stated Rin. As they each stated their agreement, they all began to head over to their assigned rooms to get a good night's sleep. The following morning, they each slowly began to file out of their rooms and have a breakfast consisting mainly of fruit. Having had breakfast, Haruka began to pull some scrolls out of the backpack that she had been carrying on their travels and began to unseal their contents so that they could be used when needed. 2 of the scrolls she pulled out were labeled as Naruto's personal belongings, Hinata's personal belongings. Naruto's scroll contained a frog wallet, his father's scroll, his 4 young chakra trees which were only about a foot tall, and a picture album with some pictures taken from when Sarutobi and Haruka would get Naruto and Hinata together. Hinata's contained a simple stuffed fox given to her by her mother, and a picture of her and her pregnant mother. They each placed their belongings in their rooms until all that were left were the chakra trees, prompting the question of where to plant them. Having a quick chat with Rin, it was soon decided that on a place for the trees to be planted a short distance from the house, and that Naruto could place his flower garden in that area as well. By the end of the day, they could honestly say that they could call this place home. It had been a month since they had arrived in the valley, and things had been going well. Naruto and Hinata had been having various lessons during each week revolving around reading and writing with the occasional swimming lesson. Today, however, it had been decided that it was time for Naruto to learn how to access his chakra, and each of the group was standing around to see the result. "Okay, Naruto, I want you to place your hands into the ram's seal like this," stated Rin as she showed Naruto the seal. Making sure Naruto had formed the seal correctly, she continued, "Good. Now what I want you to do is feel for your chakra and try to get it to move around your body. As you begin to get it to work, you will most likely feel it beginning to move around your stomach before anywhere else." "Alright," replied Naruto as he set to work. Nothing happened for a few minutes, but everyone expected this as it can take a while to learn to access one's chakra rapidly. A few more minutes passed, and it was obvious to everyone that Naruto was making progress. The main reason for this was the fact that he was currently emitting enough chakra to be a genin, and it was still rising. After a few more minutes, it finally capped out at around low to mid chunin level, which had them stunned, as he had only barely reached the age which he would be enrolled in the academy. But what was a shock to everyone was that his chakra seemed to cause everyone to feel as if they were suddenly in the presence of someone powerful, but also someone who would not hurt anyone who did not deserve it. Snapping out of her shock, Rin congratulated Naruto on succeeding before turning to Haruka and saying, "I think you were right about needing to have them learn chakra control. To have this much chakra at his age and not having used it before is a sign that he is going to need all of the chakra control he can get in order to control the vast reserves that he will have." Turning back to Naruto, she decided to give him his final instructions for the day. "Alright Naruto, I am sure you noticed the length of time it took you to access your chakra. Well, now that you know how to access it, I want you to be trying to reduce the amount of time it takes you to call it up." "Okay, I will have this down by the end of the day," stated Naruto with confidence. "Well then Naruto, I will make you a deal. If you can get the hang of this by the end of the day, then I will teach you something new tomorrow, but if you cannot, then you have to wash the dishes tonight. How does that sound?" stated Rin. Naruto considered this for a moment before quickly agreeing to the terms. Haruka, having watched this exchange, decided that it was time to let Rin know of her misfortune. Turning to Rin, she stated, "Rin, I think you should know it is not a good idea to bet against Naruto. You will always lose." "What do you mean?" asked Rin. "Well, so far I know of at least 20 bets the Hokage had made against Naruto, and not one of them ended up with the Hokage winning." At this piece of information, Rin began to look slightly worried before shrugging it off. After all, the only thing she would have to do is teach something new to Naruto, and Hinata if he succeeds, so she had nothing to worry about. That afternoon it was once again confirmed that betting against Naruto was bound to end in failure, as Naruto had indeed learned to access his chakra quickly. Rin's home. It had been a year since they had arrived at Rin's home, and for the most part they had plenty to do. Both Naruto and Hinata had taken to their studies quite well and had reached the point where they could both read and write, and only occasionally have problems. Likewise, the same could be said for maths knowledge. They still worked on these as they still had a ways to go, but now they had moved on to some more difficult subjects such as learning grammar and map reading. Their written studies had also been expanded to include history and what is known about the Konoha clans, especially the Hyuga clan, as it was unknown when they would next meet someone from the clan. Their practical studies, on the other hand, had also progressed well. They had begun with memorizing the hand seals and learning to swim before they quickly moved on to learning to jump from tree to tree and the best ways to avoid injuries from a fall. The final thing that they had covered during the year was chakra control. They had managed to complete the basics such as getting a leaf to stick to their head, walking up trees, and walking on water. After completing these, they had been forced to perform both the leaf concentration and tree climbing exercises together before moving on to performing the water walking and leaf concentration exercises. The reason they were given was that being able to perform 2 or more chakra control exercises at once would give them the ability to perform more than one task at a time. After all, if they were able to sticking to a tree while performing a jutsu and not need to fully split their concentration, then they would be much more effective in battle. Even with all this on their plates, they still managed to find time to themselves or to just relax. Today, however, they had something else planned. They had decided that they would take a trip to the beach to get their minds off of everything for a while and just have some fun. Beach. Having packed up their necessities and changed into their swimsuits, the group had quickly left the house and followed the nearby stream to the west coast of Tea Country before walking south to a small cove with a cave on the side just large enough for someone to walk into while standing. The cove itself seemed to be almost circular in shape, with a small gap to allow the water to go in and out, and some large rocks at the cove's entrance that tended to stop most of the waves from washing away the sand that separated it from the ocean. "Here we are," stated Rin as they arrived at the cove. "This is a nice place," stated Haruka as she looked around. "Yes, well, before you all arrived I had plenty of free time on my hands, so I would occasionally walk up and down Tea Country just to see if I could find something new. It allowed me find a few places that would otherwise be ignored," replied Rin as she began to set up her beach towel. "Sound like you enjoyed yourself pretty well without us around," stated Haruka. "Do not get me wrong, it was definitely a good life, but it was also a lonely one," assured Rin as she turned to watch Naruto and Hinata as they began to splash water towards each other. "You must have been fairly excited to have us come here then," replied Haruka. "Yes, the moment I was informed of your situation I immediately jumped at the chance for the company. I know I could have gone to one of the nearby towns more often, but it was much more exciting to go explore the countryside," stated Rin. "That makes sense. It can get rather dull sometimes when there is nothing new to do," replied Haruka as she turned to watch Hinata jump onto Naruto's back to be carried around. They each continued to relax for a few hours until a storm began to set in, which prompted Rin to direct them to enter the small cave on the side of the cove. The cave itself began to slope upward as they entered it before they came across an open room which oddly enough had seals carved into the wall. Walking over to the side of the cave, Rin began to channel chakra into some of the seals. The result was instantaneous. Light and warmth filled the cave as the seals on the walls began to glow. Looking back at the group, Rin answered their unasked question. "These are the only seals I have gone out of my way to learn, and that was due to the number of times I have had to spend a night in a cold, dark cave. So when I found this cave I added the seals because I knew it was a place I was likely to use in the future." They stayed the night in the cave, for which Haruka was particularly pleased for, as she did not want to have to carry Hanabi home in a storm, and from what she could hear it was starting to pick up. Beach. After staying the night in the cave and unsealing some supplies for breakfast, the group decided that it was time to head back. They had made it halfway along the beach when Naruto's bladder decided to make itself known. Splitting up, they each headed into the forest to take care of their business. After a short walk, Naruto determined that he had reached a far enough distance and began to relieve himself. A few moments of silence later, Naruto heard a noise coming from within the forest and decided to see what it was. Walking further in, he was surprised to see what appeared to a camp. His surprise, however, was quickly cut off when he was spotted as several of the people within the camp began to rush towards him. Seeing the danger, Naruto began to run back to the other, but was quickly losing ground to his pursuers, who quickly slammed him into a tree as soon as they had a chance. Falling to the ground with a loud thump, Naruto began to slip into unconsciousness. Meanwhile, the rest of the group had met back up at the beach and were waiting on Naruto. A few minutes passed by and they were each getting worried. Making their way into the forest once again, they began to follow Naruto's trail until they reached what Rin and Haruka recognized as the scene of a chase. Following it to its source, they came across the same camp that Naruto had come across moments before. Within the camp were several tents, a few crates, and about 20 people who were obviously bandits. What caught their eye, however, was the fact that 2 of the bandits were carrying an unconscious Naruto towards one of the tents. Deciding to intervene, Rin quickly strode out into the open, drawing the attention of the bandits. Speaking up, she stated, "You have 2 choices. You can either release Naruto, who you are about to tie up, and we leave peacefully, or you can have your butts handed to you." The bandits, who obviously did not know that Rin was a ninja, decided to attack en masse. As they continued to attack, it was quickly becoming obvious to the bandits that despite what skills they might have, they were indeed getting their butts kicked. While this was going on, Haruka and Hinata had quickly made their way around to where Naruto was in the hopes of waking him up. After a vigorous shaking, Naruto did indeed begin to wake up, but unfortunately a few of the bandits noticed what they were doing and began to attack them as well. With Rin currently indisposed, Haruka engaged the few bandits, but with Hanabi in her arms, her effectiveness was severely reduced. With both of the adults currently occupied, there was little to stop the lone bandit that managed to get past Haruka. Rushing towards Hinata, the bandit quickly hit her in the stomach, knocking the wind out of her, as she fell painfully to the ground. Naruto watched as his best friend got knocked to the ground and prepared to attack the one responsible. His attention was soon, however, diverted from the bandit, as he heard coughing coming from Hinata. Turning back to Hinata briefly, he noticed some blood on her arm from where she had fallen on a sharp rock. The bandit laughed as he saw the blood on Hinata's arm, drawing Naruto's attention back to himself. Naruto, seeing the bandit laugh at Hinata, pain sparked Naruto anger to rise. The person in front of him was enjoying this, and as the bandit began to move towards Hinata once again, something inside Naruto snapped. Naruto's chakra exploded off from where he was standing, causing his hair to wave in an invisible wind and his body to give off a slight golden glow. Naruto rushed towards the bandit, intent on stopping any more harm from coming to Hinata, and proceeded to punch the bandit to the ground. However, with each punch or kick that he delivered, pain began to build in his limbs, but he ignored it. The assault did not last long, however, as Rin had finished dealing with her bandits and proceeded to quickly knock out the bandit. Seeing that the bandit had been dealt with, Naruto quickly made his way over to Hinata, who had managed to stand up again. Lifting up Hinata's arm, Naruto began to look at the wound, which turned out was nothing more than a simple scrape, and watched in amazement as a golden glow surrounded the wound and began to heal it. Having his fears subside, the adrenaline in system began to wear off, causing him to feel the pain within his muscles and the feeling of exhaustion before he collapsed to the ground. Forest. Hinata was sitting on the ground holding Naruto close as Rin tried to find out what was wrong with him. She could still see the slight pained expression on his face that he had as he fallen to the ground. Seeing Rin's hands stop glowing, she looked up at her expectantly. Looking into Hinata's eyes, Rin gave a smile as she spoke. "He is fine. It seems that Naruto opened one of the gates when he saw you get hurt. He is suffering from a case of chakra exhaustion and has an unhealthy buildup of lactic acid in his muscles as a result of overusing them." "Lactic acid?" questioned Hinata. "Yes, it is a chemical in the body that builds up in your muscles when your body cannot get enough oxygen to them for the amount of work you're doing. It is what causes that burning sensation in your arms and legs when you exercise, and with the amount Naruto has in his system, I am not surprised that he looks like he is in pain," answered Rin. "Oh," stated Hinata as she looked back down at Naruto. "Come on, we need to get back to the house so he can rest, and I can do a more thorough examination," stated Rin as she prepared to lift up Naruto. Taking one final look at Naruto before they headed back, Hinata asked, "Does his whiskers look lighter to you?" Rin's house. It had been a day since Naruto had passed out, and Hinata was beginning to get worried as Naruto never takes this long to recover. She had been sitting near his bed ever since they had reached the house, determined to watch over him. Finally hearing signs of his awakening, she quickly got up to inform Rin. Moments later, Rin walks in with Hinata following close behind, just in time to see Naruto open his eyes. Walking up to the side of his bed, Rin asked, "How are you feeling?" Looking up at Rin, he answered, "Just a bit tired." "Well, that is to be expected," stated Rin. "You opened one of the chakra gates, and I should probably congratulate you on being one of a very small group of people who have ever opened a gate without training." This caused Naruto to smile as he realized that he accomplished something rare. "Now, do not do it again," stated Rin. Naruto's smile was promptly replaced with a confused expression as he asked, "What?" "Naruto, opening the gates is a forbidden jutsu. When you open a gate, you get a large chakra boost, and the limits on your muscles are released so that you can hit with a much greater force. However, it comes with a price. Once the gate closes, it leaves you weakened state, and with each gate that you open, your muscles begin to tear apart at increasing speeds," replied Rin. "Oh," stated Naruto, suddenly not liking the idea of opening the gates. "That being said," continued Rin, "I think that in one case it was probably the best thing you could have done." "What do you mean?" questioned Naruto, curious to see where this was going. "Well, aside from allowing you to protect Hinata, it allowed your body to complete some of the changes it was going through." "Changes?" asked Naruto. "Yes, but before I get into that, do you remember when you saved Hinata when you were 3 and ended up in the hospital for 2 weeks? asked Rin. "Yes," answered Naruto as he winced from the memory. "Well, what you do not know is that the reason you were in the hospital was not because of the injuries you suffered in the battle, but because you tapped into the Kyuubi's chakra, which you were not ready for," stated Rin. "I used Kyuubi's chakra?" asked Naruto, although he was not sure he wanted to know where this was going. "Yes, from what your medical records said, the chakra was burning you from the inside out because your body could not stop the chakra from leaking out of the seal. Luckily for you, however, your chakra core began to change and started to produce a new type of chakra that layered itself around the seal, creating a barrier that prevented the Kyuubi's chakra from entering your system," stated Rin. "So I have a new type of chakra?" asked Naruto. "Yes, and from what I have read, it seems that this chakra is what is responsible for your fast healing," stated Rin. Now, for these changes I was talking about, continued Rin. It seems that from the moment your chakra changed, it had been making changes to your body, but it had been progressing slowly. When you went and used the gate, it appears that it forced your chakra core to complete its changes so that it was finally able to stop producing your old chakra entirely, leaving you with only your new chakra. Then once your old chakra had been forced out of your body by the pressure of opening the gate, your new chakra began its task of completing its changes to the rest of your body. So what did it change? Asked Naruto, wanting to know what exactly had happened to him. Well, for starters, you are now capable of healing quickly from your injuries, stated Rin. But I thought I was already able to heal quickly, replied a confused Naruto. You were, but now your body is now able to heal itself quickly without the assistance of your chakra, so that you heal quickly even you are out of chakra. It also seems that you now also have a better immune system, so you will most likely never get sick and will be able to build up a resistance to poisons faster than most people would, stated Rin. So I could become immune to poison? Asked Naruto. Well, if you have built up enough of a resistance to a certain type of poison, then only a large dose of that type of poison will be able to kill you, but any other dosage would still temporarily weaken you, so it is still a good idea to avoid being poisoned at all, answered Rin. The next change is that when I did a scan of your body, I found 2 strange lumps of bone on your upper back and some new muscles connecting to them, but from what I can tell it has not finished forming yet, so we will just have to wait to see what it turns out to be, stated Rin. Now the last 2 changes I think you should see for yourself, stated Rin as she reached into her bag and pulled out a mirror. Taking the mirror from Rin, Naruto held it up to look at his reflection. The first change that he noticed was that his whisker marks completely gone, as if they had never been there. Thinking on this for a moment, he did not mind, as it only served as a constant reminder that he is Kyuubi's jailer. The second change took a moment for him to spot, but when he did, it made him gasp. His eyes had changed. The whites of his eyes had changed to a sky blue, and his pupils and iris had merged into one, while still retaining that same ocean blue that he always had. Looking up at Rin, Naruto asked the only logical question he could: does this mean I have a Jujutsu? It is possible. Try channeling some chakra to your eyes and find out, instructed Rin. Placing his hands in the ram's seal, Naruto did as instructed. Before answering, everything looks a bit clearer. Rin considered this for a moment before stating, well, if your eyes do have any special abilities, they do not require chakra, because there was no change to the way your eyes look, and the result you got from channeling chakra to your eyes was the same for any ninja doing the thing. Oh, stated Naruto, sounding slightly disappointed. Hey, do not be too disappointed about it. Most people who have a bloodline limit, especially those with Jujutsus, tend to become too dependent on it. Besides, if Hinata's blushing is anything to go by, then these changes obviously suit you, stated Rin. Naruto, hearing this, turned to see a blushing Hinata as she let out an eep, having been caught while staring at Naruto. Rin chuckled for a moment before drawing their attention once again. Well, now that that is out of the way, I want you both to get plenty of sleep before tomorrow, because Haruka and I are going to be increasing your training in light of recent events, stated Rin before she left the room. Letting out a yawn, Hinata made her way over to her bed before she heard Naruto ask, do you really think I look better like this? Turning around to face Naruto, Hinata answered yes. Okay, well, good night, Hinata-chan. Good night, Naruto-kun. Forest. It was morning, and true to her word, Rin had gotten Naruto and Hinata out of bed so that they could start their training. They were soon dressed and outside, standing in front of Rin and Haruka awaiting their instructions. Haruka, taking charge, began to speak. From the schooling you have both had this past year, you know that the 3 main areas of shinobi combat are taijutsu, ninjutsu, and genjutsu. Now we will not be teaching you either ninjutsu or genjutsu for a while yet, but we will be teaching you taijutsu. The reason for this is that unless you can fight at close range, then all the enemy has to do to defeat you is get in close. Now, to begin with, I will be teaching Hinata how to use the Juken fighting style, which was specifically designed to be used with the Byakugan, and Rin will be teaching Naruto medical taijutsu, which focuses on dodging your opponent's strikes before counter-attacking, continued Haruka. During the morning from 8 to 10, you will both be out here practicing the kata for the styles while we correct and mistakes. Once you have memorized the kata, we will have Naruto sparring with Rin and Hinata will be sparring with me, but without chakra to begin with. Then eventually you could be sparring with either of us or each other on any given day. Once we reach that stage, we will be giving you both some weights to wear. This will help you to increase your strength, speed, and endurance. Haruka continues before looking towards Rin. Rin, seeing that it was her turn to speak, continued where Haruka left off. From 10 to 11 you will both be doing chakra control exercises. This is to both increase your control of your chakra and to help you both build up your reserves for when we begin on ninjutsu and genjutsu. Then from 11 to 12 we will all be doing meditation exercises. This will allow you build up your concentration so you can perform tasks without being distracted, and so that you learn patience. After all, a ninja needs to be able to wait in complete silence if they are trying to spring a trap on their target, continued Rin. We will then have a break from 12 to 1 for lunch before spending the next 2 hours teaching you about stealth. This includes how to detect chakra and how to suppress your chakra signature to prevent other ninja from easily detecting you, continued Rin. Then from 3 to 4 we will be temporarily giving you the equivalent of D-ranked missions for you to complete. Which reminds me, Rin stated before turning to Haruka and asking, is Tora still causing trouble for the genin in Konoha? Haruka chuckled briefly before answering yes, she is, or at least her daughter is. I swear the Fire Lord is breeding those cats specifically to get a laugh out of the trouble it causes. Rin laughed at that. That would make sense. After all, I think we're on to the 3rd generation of Tora cats. Moving on. After the D-ranked missions we will be taking a break until 7, at which time I will be teaching you about medicine, because you never know when someone you know or a person you are protecting might need medical assistance. Stated Rin. So your schedule will be as follows. 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Taijutsu practice. 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Chakra control exercises. 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Meditation. 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Lunch. 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Stealth training. 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. D-ranked missions. 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. Dinner and relaxing. 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Medical training. So has anyone got any questions? Asked Rin. Yes, are we going to be doing this every day? Asked Hinata. No, we will be taking a break on Sundays. Replied Rin before waiting for more questions. Seeing that no one was going to ask any more questions, Rin stated, well, it is 9 at the moment, leaving us with an hour for taijutsu, so let's get started. Rin's house. The group was currently sitting within Rin's house performing their meditation exercises. It had been 3 days since they had started their routine, and both Naruto and Hinata tended to be worn out by the end of the day. The only part Naruto could not figure out was what kind of person came up with the idea of passing off common chores as missions. So far they had weeded Rin's vegetable garden, cooked dinner, and attempted to catch a fox. That was another thing. Why in the world were they supposed to catch a fox? Sure, they had said that it gave the perfect opportunity to practice their stealth and tracking, but after hearing about what usually happened to those who were assigned to capture Tora the cat, he was not so sure. Personally, he thought they just wanted to see them suffer like they had. Realizing that he had once again let his thoughts stray, Naruto once again attempted to clear his mind. Mindscape. Naruto, feeling a strange sensation wash over his body, opened his eyes to find out what was causing it, only to start at the change in scenery. Where previously he could say he was the inside of Rin's house, he now could not. Looking around, Naruto saw that he was standing in the middle of a hallway. The walls and ceiling were made out of wood while the floor was covered in soft carpet. Getting up from his seated position, Naruto began to make his way down the hallway, aware that this place might not be safe. Coming to a door, Naruto slowly opened it to see what was inside. However, what he saw confused him as he watched the events unfold. What he saw was Rin and Haruka give the exact same speech about what they were going to do for their training as they gave 3 days ago. Closing the door, Naruto decided that something strange was definitely going on and proceeded to continue down the hallway. After having looked in a few more doors, Naruto decided that either somehow he had entered his mind or someone had constructed an elaborate seal array so that they could view Naruto's memories in order to find out his weaknesses. Personally, he considered the former to be the most likely. With that in mind, he proceeded to make his way down the various hallways he found until he saw a strange red and gold glow coming from the end of the one of them. Curious, he followed the glow until he reached a room with an unusually large gate at the other end, to put it mildly. The gate itself looked to be held together oddly enough by a single piece of paper, while its steel bars seemed to have built up a layer of rust. However, the gate itself was not what caught his attention. Instead, it was the strange wall that was just outside of the gate. The wall itself appeared to spread across the entire width and height of the room and looked to be gold in color. The odd thing about this wall was that small parts of the wall would often gain a brief red glow to it as well. His thoughts were suddenly cut off as a loud booming voice echoed out of the cage. So my pathetic excuse for a jailer comes to visit. Looking sharply towards the inside of the cage, Naruto was shocked to see 2 large red slitted eyes that seemed to be full of malicious intent attached to a giant fox with 9 tails. You are the Kyuubi, stated Naruto, obviously having just come to the conclusion. It took you long enough, meatbag, stated the Kyuubi with its voice full of mirth. Hey, it is not like I see a giant overgrown fox every day, you know, replied Naruto. Well, be glad, because if I had my way I would have already crushed you with my paw, stated Kyuubi, releasing his killing intent, which was greatly reduced as it passed through the gold wall. However, it still let Naruto know that this was one being that was not to be trifled with. After remaining silent for a moment, Naruto asked curiously, why did you attack Konoha? I heard that the village had a ninja that could defeat an army by himself, so I decided to put him in his place by destroying him, replied Kyuubi, obviously angry at the way things turned out. Well, that certainly backfired, stated Naruto with humor in his voice. Leave, roared Kyuubi with enough killing intent to make Naruto seriously consider the possibility of Kyuubi breaking out. Deciding that it was probably a good idea to do as Kyuubi said, Naruto quickly turned around and ran back out into the hallway in search of an exit. No sooner had that thought crossed his mind when a door suddenly appeared near Naruto with a sign that said exit. Well, that was convenient, stated Naruto before opening it and walking through Rin's house. Opening his eyes, Naruto was greeted to the sight of Rin, Haruka, and Hinata trying to snap him back to reality. Seeing him beginning to respond, they asked him if he knew what had happened, to which he told them what he had seen. Needless to say, they were shocked to learn that Naruto had talked with Kyuubi, but they too found humor in the fact that Naruto was able to annoy the fox so easily. Deciding that they had had enough meditation for one day, they began making their way out to have lunch. Forest. Hinata was currently watching Naruto in his spar against Rin as he attempted to sweep her legs out from under her. It was strange watching Naruto fight. Whenever he got knocked down, he just got straight back up, determined to learn everything he could. It was the same with everything else, regardless of what it was, he would put his all into it. Seeing him doing just that was inspiring and made her want to do the same. Throughout the past few weeks she had noticed that he seemed to have that sort of impact on her, and it seemed she could not get enough of him. She found herself spending more and more of her free time with him, enjoying whatever activity they were currently working on. This morning it was their usual taijutsu practice, and even when they were sparring, she knew that they had both enjoyed showing what they could do. Hinata had also noticed the same things from Naruto that she herself had been doing. Although in Naruto's case he seemed to be less aware of the fact that he often tried to spend more time with her than he used to. Still, the idea of him wanting to spend time with her would always bring a smile to her face. It was not long after she started to realize these things that she worked out what was happening. She was developing a crush on Naruto, and could not be happier. When she had worked it out, she had told her mother, who had only said that if anything should come of it then she would be happy for them, but that they should take things slowly. After all, they were only 9 years old and had plenty of time for their feelings to progress. Hinata herself was glad for the support, but for now she was content to just spend her spare time with Naruto. Forest Stream. Rin quickly made her way to the valley stream with Naruto, and Hinata following behind her. In her opinion, they had both come far in their training. They had learned a few new chakra control methods, including how to keep their body warm while they swim and to move beads of water along various parts of their bodies. They were likewise doing well with their other training. It seemed Hinata had a knack for tracking and could easily track down whatever she was chasing. Naruto, on the other hand, had a knack for stealth and was often found attempting to sneak up on Rin or Haruka. He had even succeeded a few times, causing either Rin or Haruka to jump slightly when he suddenly spoke up. Their taijutsu was coming along as well, and they were becoming proficient enough that they would soon start to swap sparring partners. Now, though, it was time to start teaching them a few extra things. Okay, stated Rin once to Naruto, and Hinata had caught up to her. I know that this is usually the time when we meditate, but I think we have proceeded about as far as we need to in that area. So I believe it is time to change around our training schedule. First things first, that we will no longer be doing meditation or the horrible excuses for missions that we call D-rank. Continued Rin while looking at them expectantly. She was not disappointed when she saw that upon hearing about the lack of D-rank missions, Naruto began to cheer loudly. Hinata, though, just let a small smile grace her lips at the news. After the cheers subsided, Rin continued, we will continue to have our morning taijutsu practice and chakra control exercises while moving up our stealth training to just before lunch. The rest of the day, though, will be used to teach you the basic academy jutsu, which I expect you to master before I begin to give you any more. Today, however, I will be teaching you the water breathing jutsu, which you can practice along with the academy jutsus that I will be showing you over the next 3 days. The reason why I am teaching you this jutsu along with the others is that it is a basic survival jutsu, and as such it could very well save your life one day. Now let us begin, shall we? Rin's house. The training had been going fairly well with the new jutsus, or at least it had been. Both Naruto and Hinata had progressed well in the 4 jutsus they had been given and had been trying to perform the jutsus with less hand signs like they would have learned to do in the academy. It had been on one of these afternoons that they were supposed to be practicing when Rin, having just finished attending her vegetable garden, realized that they had disappeared. She had informed Haruka of the situation to enlist her help in a search of the house. What they came across was not what they were expecting. Apparently Naruto had gotten it into his head that he would not be able to perform a completely accurate transformation of a girl unless he knew what the difference was between a boy and a girl. Somehow he had managed to convince Hinata the same thing, and that had led to the situation that Rin and Haruka walked in on. Standing before them were Naruto and Hinata, completely nude, attempting to memorize what the other looked like while sporting blushes that would make a tomato jealous. Needless to say, there was only one possible course of action: the talk. For the next week, both Naruto and Hinata found it hard to look at each other without turning red, which Rin and Haruka found to be quite hilarious. By the time they could stop blushing around each other, they could both agree on one thing: their transformation jutsu had improved. First, they had only just finished learning to perform the 4 basic jutsu they were given without the need to use hand signs. They had initially been told that they needed to be able to perform the jutsu with only one hand sign to be truly effective, and that most of the academy students in Konoha learned to do it for the academy jutsus by the time they graduate. Upon Naruto's suggestion, however, they had both worked hard to be able to use the jutsu without the hand signs, extending the length of time needed to complete the task. The hardest part was trying to memorize the feel of the chakra once it had been molded and then calling it up into that pattern without the help granted by the hand signs. There had been a side benefit to the extra work, though. It had pushed their chakra control up, bringing Hinata to near perfect control while allowing Naruto to gain Jonin level control. Now, after 4 years of chakra control exercises and countless lessons in the field of medicine, Rin had finally judged them ready to learn medical jutsu. Alright, to begin with, I am going to show you the mystical palm jutsu. The hand signs are tiger, horse, rabbit, rat and dog, and when performed correctly your chakra should turn green and make your hands glow. Stated Rin. This is the basic jutsu upon which almost all medical ninja rely. It is a multi-purpose technique that only requires a high level of chakra control to perform and can be used for almost every medical situation. The key to this jutsu is to practice using it in different situations to allow the user to perform whatever task he or she may be required to do. However, no one wants unskilled medics working on their injuries. It is for that reason everyone who wants to become a certified medic must first complete a series of tasks that test the user's ability to use the jutsu. She continued, now I will tell you right now that I am a mid-level medic, so I will not be able to teach you everything. I can however teach you enough that you will be able to heal large cuts and wounds, but for anyone who is in critical condition I will only be able to teach you how to stabilize them until you can get them to a hospital. So shall we begin? Outside Rin's house, Naruto and Hinata had both now reached 11 years of age and had completed what little training Rin could provide. It had been fairly interesting when they had first started to find out that whenever Naruto tried to use medical chakra he ended up with his chakra being a slightly darker gold color than usual. Oddly enough, it still worked like normal medical chakra, so they did not worry about it too much. Hinata, on the other hand, seemed to excel at medicine, and seemed to soak up the knowledge like a sponge. Unfortunately, there was only a limited amount Rin could teach about the subject. During their training they had also learned the various basic jutsus given to them by the Sanine, and now according to Haruka it was time for their training to diverge, and for that Haruka knew just where to begin. Alright, as you both know, you are each going to need to know at least a few things that the other does not know, so that if one of you is defeated the other might still stand a chance, and I have a few ideas to start you off. Stated Haruka. The first thing is we are going to find out what elemental affinity you both have. This will tell us which elemental you could eventually control without the need for hand signs, although that could take years of training to do. It will also give us an idea of what type of jutsus you should be on the lookout for as you travel. She continued, okay, now Naruto, do you know why the Sandaime gave you some chakra tree seeds for a birthday present other than to give you something to do? Asked Haruka as she led them over to his garden. No, stated Naruto with a little confusion. Well, believe it or not, these trees can be useful to a ninja. If you push enough chakra into one of these trees they will show you what your elemental affinity is. Now both of you go and channel some chakra into one of those trees. Stated Haruka while pointing to the trees. Naruto, deciding to go first, walked over to one of the trees and began to pump chakra into it. Moments later a gust of wind began to build up, and as it circled the tree it picked up any loose leaves it came across before slowly subsiding. It seems that Naruto has an affinity for wind, which tends to be good for offensive jutsus. Okay, Hinata, you're next. Stated Haruka. Walking forwards, Hinata placed her hand on one of the trees. Channeling her chakra into the tree she watched as a dense mist began to collect around the tree before it sank into the ground for the tree to use. And it would seem that Hinata is more suited to water jutsus, which is more suited to defense. Stated Haruka. What would have happened if we had one of the other affinities? Asked Hinata, genuinely curious. Yes, well, if you had a fire affinity it would have started to produce heat. For lightning it would have begun to glow. And if you had earth the tree would have darkened and hardened, answered Haruka. So now that we know what your affinities I can tell you how to get started on controlling them, but for now that will have to wait. Stated Haruka. Now Hinata, I think it is time for you to begin to learn the family jutsus that we were able to bring with us, and so for the next year I am going to be teaching you how to perform them before leaving you to practice your affinity. Stated Haruka as she looked at Hinata. Turning to Naruto she continued, now for you Naruto, I believe it is time for you to learn whatever techniques your father left to you and then continue on with the elemental manipulation. Okay, now that that is out of the way I shall tell you how to start on your elemental manipulation. Naruto, for wind you need to place a leaf between your hands and try to use your chakra to split it in half, and for you Hinata you will need to fill a bowl with water and try to use your chakra to shape it into a sphere. Stated Haruka. Now I am going to leave you two alone to work on it until tomorrow when you both begin your new training. Rin's house. Naruto could not believe that he had almost forgotten about the scroll his father left him. In all the time he had been away from Konoha he had not once opened it to see what had been left to him. Now it was time to change that. Opening up he once again read the letter in its entirety, however this time something stuck out in his mind. The parting words his father had given him had told him to find someone he cared for with all his heart and protect them with his life. When he thought about all of the people he cared for, the only one truly stuck out in his mind was Hinata. Sure, he would protect any of his precious people if given the chance, but when he thought about Hinata he could honestly say that he would be devastated if anything were to happen to her. There was only one conclusion that he could come to, and that was that he had fallen for his best friend. Thinking about it for a moment longer he came to the conclusion that if he had to fall for anyone then he was glad it was her. Resolving to ask Hinata to be his girlfriend he continued with the task at hand. Moving to the bottom of the scroll he came across 3 storage seals. Unsealing them all he began to look through their contents. The first scroll he looked at contained a large amount of information on the Flying Thunder God technique, however most of it required a good knowledge of seals to understand. Placing it to one side he continued his search. Opening the scroll he saw that it contained the instructions for the Rasengan, and that as powerful as the jutsu was it was still incomplete. Vowing to one day complete the jutsu he shifted his attention to the last scroll. Opening it up he saw it was a letter, and began to read. Dear Naruto, my name is Kushina Uzumaki and I am your mother. I have just recently found out that I am pregnant with you and I could not be happier. I have decided to write this letter to you in case anything should happen to me so that you will always know I love you. Sealed in the bottom of this scroll you will find our family sword. I myself do not use it so I have sealed it here for you to have. The sword is referred to as Katahenka, meaning shape change. This sword was one of the few swords to ever be crafted to fully meet the needs of a ninja. When it was commissioned there were only 2 requirements that had to be met. The first was that it had to be made as near to indestructible as the blacksmith could manage, This was to ensure that it would not be damaged in battle, leaving the ninja defenseless. This was later enhanced by seals to ensure its durability. The second was that the sword had to be as versatile as possible so that it could be passed down through the generations, allowing them use it in a way that suits them. This was also solved with another set of seals. The sword was made to originally have a blade that was 1 foot wide and 7 feet long with a handle 3 feet in length. The blade and handle were then covered in seals that would allow the user to change the sword into any single-bladed sword they desired, which gave the blade its name. Please use the sword well, my son. It may not be the most fancy, but I can guarantee it is a fine sword that will serve you well. Love, Kushina Uzumaki. Naruto was in tears. He had once again obtained proof that his parents loved him, but this time from his mother. Wiping the tears from his eyes, he set about unsealing the sword from the scroll, only to have it fall on the floor due to the sheer size of it, considering the fact that it was in its original form. After having finished staring at what basically qualified as a slab of metal with an edge, he began to seal everything away except for the instructions for the Rasengan before heading out to begin his training. Rin's house. It was dark and it had been an hour since dinner, and due to the fact that Rin could not teach them anything else about medicine, Naruto decided that now would be the perfect time to ask Hinata to be his girlfriend. Making his way to their room, he spotted Hinata sitting on her bed reading a scroll on the 8 divination signs, 64 palms of the hand. Walking up to Hinata, Naruto asked, "May I have a seat?" while gesturing to her bed. Curious to what was happening, Hinata looked up from her scroll and answered sure. Taking a seat beside Hinata, Naruto looked into Hinata's eyes and suddenly felt nervous. Stealing his resolve, Naruto began to speak. "Hinata, we have been best friends for several years now, and I have recently come to realize that my feelings for you have been growing, and I was wondering if you would be willing to be my girlfriend." Hinata stared momentarily at Naruto as she processed what he just said before she did something Naruto did not expect. She blushed and fainted with a smile on her face. Naruto was not entirely sure what to think of the situation, but decided to take the smile on her face as a good sign. Placing his hand on Hinata's shoulder, he gently began to shake her awake. Seeing her come around, he removed his hand and sat patiently for Hinata to regain her senses. Hinata slowly sat up and was slightly confused upon seeing Naruto on her bed for a moment before she remembered why he was there. Looking into his eyes, Hinata did the only thing she could think to do. She threw herself forward and pulled him into a hug before replying, "Yes, I want to be your girlfriend." Naruto could honestly say that he did not expect this reaction, but he was pleased nonetheless. Pulling back from the hug to see Hinata's questioning eyes, he quickly moved forward and captured Hinata's lips with his own and began to kiss her passionately. Training in the past year had been relatively slow compared to the previous years, as they found out why few attempt to learn to control their element before they reach Jonin. The amount of time it takes to learn how to control an element can be in the area of years according to Haruka. However, that tended to be because most ninja do not have large amounts of free time to devote to learning the technique. As such, it was shortly after the 4-month mark since they started that they had both finally succeeded in performing the first task, but without knowing what the second stage was, they were forced to start experimenting and making up their own exercises in an attempt to progress. During this training, Naruto had once asked if it was possible to learn to control the other elemental chakra. It had been one of the more difficult questions that Haruka had to answer, as she did not really know the answer, so she had told him that it could be possible considering that all jutsu are just different mixes of physical and mental energies molded in different ways. However, she also said that it would be more difficult as their chakra is not as closely synchronized with the other elements, so considering the time it takes to master one element, they should master their affinity before trying to control any others. Their other training did not stop during this time either. They still spared most morning to keep their taijutsu training up to par and going. Even though they had nothing new to learn in the area for the time being, they still found it a good way to help them get used to their weights whenever they were increased. Hanabi had joined them in their morning training sessions as she had finished learning the basic of ninja life the year before, and although she was not as good as everyone else, she found that she enjoyed the time she spent with her sister and mother learning the family taijutsu style. Most of the rest of Hanabi's time was spent just how Naruto and Hinata had when they were starting out: meditation, chakra control, and stealth. Hinata had spent a good portion of her afternoons learning the family jutsu from Haruka. However, they had only managed to take the scrolls for the heavenly spin and 8 divination signs, 64 palms of the hand, so it had not taken her long to learn them, leaving her plenty of free time when not practicing elemental manipulation. This turned out to be a good thing, as she had taken to tracking Naruto. It may not have seemed like a good thing to be spending your time trying to follow someone around, but it allowed her to become fairly good in the field of tracking, as Naruto had decided to start trying to sneak up on people without them knowing. He had become so good in the field that both Rin and Haruka agreed to make Naruto wear bright clothes most of the time so that he would not be able to scare the life out of them when he suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Unfortunately, Naruto had decided to take it as a challenge and was beginning to once again sneak up on Rin and Haruka. Eventually, they just decided to get used to him appearing out of nowhere because they were not going to challenge him to try sneaking up on them while wearing bright kill me orange. That was just asking for trouble. Hinata, though, had found that her abilities in tracking increased greatly from trying to track Naruto, but unless she was specifically trying to find him, she found that he could just as easily sneak up on her like he could for anyone else. Although Hinata had to admit to herself that she enjoyed having her boyfriend suddenly appear out of nowhere just to talk to her or help her with what she was working on, Naruto, for his training other than enjoying the challenge of sneaking up on people, had started to lay traps for Hinata to find in ever more complex and elaborate designs for when she tried to track him. Of course, none of the traps were harmful and made sure that Hinata knew he was going to be setting traps. After all, he did not want to lose his girlfriend simply because he planted a few traps around the place. When Rin and Haruka had eventually found out about these traps he was setting, they had went to investigate. What they had found had been horrifying. The amount of traps and the way they were set up would be devastating to anyone trying to make their way through with any decent speed. They had both agreed on one thing when they had seen the monstrosity, and that was that they were glad he had not become a prankster. With that kind of talent he had for traps and his knowledge of stealth, he could probably get away with painting the Hokage mountain and not get caught until after he had finished. They also agreed that they would never mention the idea of painting the Hokage mountain to him in fear that he might actually try. Naruto had also trained in what was left to him by his parents. He had managed to figure out how to change the shape of his mother's sword and found out that what the scroll had said was fairly accurate. Although he found that he could change the size of the blade and handle independently if he wanted, he just figured that it was to allow the person using the sword to make slight adjustments in the length of the blade so that it suits them better. Unfortunately, that was all he could do with the sword except swing it around wildly until he found someone who could train him. The Rasengan turned out to be basically a chakra exercise and controlling much larger amounts of chakra than the chakra control exercises he had done. It had taken him 3 months to be able to create one in each hand at the same time, and another month to be able to do it quickly. Naruto had also found out that his eyes had begun to develop some abilities. The first was the ability to see something up to 50 meters away as clearly as if it was right in front of his face. The second ability allowed him to see clearly in the dark to the point at which the night looked as if it was just late in the afternoon at the point when the sun is just beginning to set. It was nothing truly remarkable, but Rin and Haruka assured him that both abilities could come in quite handy to a ninja. It seemed that during the year the only thing that they had both learned was an anti-pregnancy jutsu because Haruka decided that she would rather not have any grandchildren just yet. Now, after all this training, things were finally going to pay off. They had both reached 12 and at the age at which they would have become ninja had they been back in Konoha, so Rin and Haruka decided that was left to do was graduate them. However, they were not going to make it that easy for them because they were essentially going to be considered adults once they passed forest. Making their way through the forest near Degarashi Port, Naruto and Hinata began to search for a group of bandits that were reported to be nearby. They had been told by Rin that this would be their graduation exam. Their goal was to locate the group of bandits nearby and take them out. They were not required to kill anyone, but in all honesty the chances of them having to do just that were quite high. After disposing of the bandits, they were to search the tents for anything useful and to take any survivors back to town to be placed behind bars. They had also been assured by Rin that she will be nearby in case something happens that they cannot handle. Coming near what appeared to be their base of operations, they came to a halt on one of the branches. Surveying the camp, they noticed that there was 15 bandits in total, some of which had swords, and there appeared to be a missing nin from Mist. However, due to the lack of the chunin, or jonin uniform, they would have to say he was just a genin when he left, and probably a maximum of a C-rank threat. After some hand signals and some slight whispering to each other, Naruto began taking out some kunai and carefully taking aim at some of the bandits that were sitting around, while Hinata activated her Byakugan and took aim at a few that were standing guard. A moment later, 4 of the bandits were dead while another 3 had serious wounds that would need to be treated soon. The alert sounded throughout the camp, alerting everyone to the threat they were facing and their position had been compromised. Performing some hand seals, Naruto performed the great breakthrough technique, knocking over some of the bandits, who were soon hit by kunai thrown by Hinata, taking them out of the fight. Jumping down to the clearing, they began to engage the bandits with taijutsu while they were still recovering from the blast of wind. 5 more had gone down before some of them managed to get back their weapons, forcing them both to start using kunai to block, but considering the skill of their opponents, it was not long until all of the bandits had been incapacitated. During all of this, the Mist Nin had just stood there watching his troops being decimated, but as the last few were falling to the pair, he began to perform hand seals before calling out his technique, Hidden Mist Jutsu. Having finished off the bandits, Naruto and Hinata looked around to notice a dense mist beginning to cover the area, although it did not hinder Hinata's sight. Seeing the ninja begin to move in their direction, Hinata quickly moved to intercept while Naruto followed her lead. The mist ninja appeared out of the mist attempting to attack the duo with his katana, but he was clearly outmatched as Hinata just moved her kunai to intercept the blade as she struck out with her hand to deliver a juken strike to the chest, killing him instantly. As the mist began to clear, they began to look at the clearing they were in and realized that they had just made their first kills. Hunching over, they both began to heave up their breakfast. Seeing her charges bring up their lunch, Rin exited the forest from where she watched the relatively short battle to provide them comfort. "I feel awful," stated Naruto as he moved to sit himself down. Hinata could only nod in agreement as she too collapsed to the ground. Looking at the pair, Rin began to speak. "That is good to know. It is what allows us to know that we are still human. As you go through your ninja career, you will find yourself better able to handle it, but you will always feel something whenever you take someone's life." Rin began to look around as she continued. "As humans we dislike the idea of killing, but as ninja we sometimes have to. Most of the time, the best way to help you accept the necessity of it is by asking yourself, what would they have done, or how many people may they have killed without reason if you had not stopped them? After a few minutes, both Naruto and Hinata began to look better as the color returned to their faces. Getting off the ground, they began to make a search of the tents for anything of use. Finding only a scroll for the hidden misjutsu, a few kunai, and a few thousand yen, they began the process of disposing of the dead bodies before taking what few survivors into town to be placed behind bars. Rin's house. Having made it back to the house, they were greeted to the welcoming sight of Haruka and Hanabi coming up to hug them before asking how it went. After hearing about everything, Haruka looked slightly somber and allowed them to just relax the day away. After all, the first kill was always the hardest. The following day, everyone seemed to be feeling good as both Naruto and Hinata had passed their test. Alright, you two. It is obvious to everyone that you both now officially qualify as ninja, so I have taken the liberty to getting you two some headbands, stated Haruka as she brought out a box and placed it onto the living room table. Taking the lid off the box, she revealed the two dark blue headbands contained within. As you can see, either of the headbands have a symbol engraved into them to show that you are not associated with any village. You can, however, engrave something into them to show anyone that sees you that you two are part of the same group, continued Haruka. Taking the headbands out of the box, Haruka handed them to both Naruto and Hinata, who both tied them to around their heads. Now you two are officially adults in the eyes of the world, so what you do with yourselves is now your responsibility, but if you decide to leave here at any time, make sure you come to visit occasionally, stated Haruka. We will, so do not worry about it, stated Naruto, with Hinata nodding in agreement. Naruto and Hinata had been happy that they were finally considered to be ninja, but rather than head off into the world just yet, they both decided that they would like to take another vacation with everyone else first. With that in mind, they had convinced the rest of their small group to come to one of Fire Country's few hot spring villages. They had chosen the one that was located towards the southern coast of Fire Country. There was not much to the town except for the hot springs, a few restaurants and a casino or two, but they had come here mainly to relax, so they did not consider it a problem. When they had arrived at the town, it was late in the afternoon, so they did not have much time to around, but they did make a note of where the hot springs were for the following day. Come morning, everyone had slept in late, but it was a vacation after all. Now currently, after having breakfast, they had arrived at the hot springs and had separated according to gender. Ah, now this is relaxing, stated Rin as she lowered herself into the warm water. I agree, it has been far too long since I have been to one of these, replied Haruka as she watched her daughters get in. So you two, what do you think? Enjoying it so far? Asked Haruka. Hinata let out a sigh of contentment as she allowed herself to relax while replying definitely. Hanabi herself looked quite pleased with the situation as she gave a simple yes in reply. They all remained that way, just relaxing for a few minutes before they heard some other people approaching. Come on, Tsunade-sama, there is nothing wrong with taking a break with a soak in the hot spring, stated Shizen as they came through the inner hot spring doors, followed closely by a pig. I know that I would just rather be in one of those gambling casinos I saw earlier, replied Tsunade as they reached the group. Turning to the new arrivals, Rin immediately recognized the duo. Tsunade-sama, it has been a while since we last met, and Shizen, I see you still have not convinced her to stop gambling, Rin stated, earning the attention of the others. Turning her attention to the owner of the voice, Tsunade let a smile cross her face as she spoke. Yes, it has been a while, but you know I am not going to give up gambling. It is too much fun. Even though you always lose? Asked Rin. Well, it is still fun, stated Tsunade while pouting. So who are these people you are with? Asked Tsunade. Oh, well, let me introduce you. This is Haruka Yasuharu, and her two daughters Hinata and Hanabi, stated Rin while pointing to each in turn, allowing them each to say hello. They have been living with me for the past 7 years along with Hinata's boyfriend Naruto, continued Rin. Everyone, this is Tsunade of the legendary Sanine, and her apprentice Shizen, she continued. Anything else they might have said was quickly cut off by a shout of pervert coming from the boys' side of the hot springs. Boys' side, Naruto had been spending his time just relaxing in the hot spring after splitting off from the girls. He had a few things on his mind, such as what he might like to learn next now that he could travel around. The main thing on his mind, however, was that lately he had begun to notice that there were 2 lumps that seemed to be growing on his upper back, and he was slightly concerned about what they were going to become. However, considering the changes that he has been through already, he was not all that worried. Hearing the door open to the hot spring open, he turned his attention to the man that came in. The man had long white hair, red lines on his face, and a headband that had the kanji of oil on it. There was only one person that Naruto knew of that met that description, and what the man did and said next only confirmed Naruto's suspicions. Jiraiya had walked through the door and walked straight over to the fence separating the genders. Taking out a kunai, he began to make a hole in the fence, as he stated, "This is going to be great, Tsunade in a towel. With this I will be able to make Ika Ika Paradise, the movie." Knowing that none of the girls would want to be spied on while relaxing in the hot spring, Naruto walked up to the man and said, "I would appreciate it if you did not spy on my friends." Jiraiya turned to Naruto for a moment before turning back to finish creating a hole in the fence while stating, "Beat it, kid, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." Taking that statement as a no, Naruto took a few steps back before taking a deep breath and yelling, "Pervert." The reaction was instantaneous. Jiraiya's face turned ghost white as he heard yelling coming from the other side of the fence, and the sound of a stampede. Turning his attention to the hot spring door as B began to get up to make a break for it, but it was not meant to be. There rushing out of the door was Tsunade, followed by a group of women, and the expression on her face turned from anger to pure rage as she recognized him. What followed next were sounds of pain and screams for mercy as they pounded Jiraiya into the ground. Finally the beating stopped, and the women turned to leave, but they stopped as they heard Naruto speak that "You old pervert was for attempting to peep on my friends. This however is for attempting to peep on my girlfriend." Turning his attention to the group of girls clad only in towels he continued, "Ladies, I think it is my duty to inform you that before I yelled out pervert, this guy was saying to himself that whatever he saw was going to be used to help him make Ika Ika Paradise, the movie." Jiraiya, up until the point at which he heard Naruto speak, had thought that he had gotten off easy considering who he was trying to peep on. Those delusions were quickly destroyed as he listened to what Naruto said. Turning to the group, he thought he saw death itself as he looked into the eyes of the women in front of him. Screams of pain and agony were heard throughout the town as Jiraiya was beaten to within an inch of his life, only managing to fall unconscious towards the end of the beating. Finishing the beating, Tsunade sighs and states, "It just does not seem like enough. Does anyone have any ideas of what we could do to him?" The girls tossed a few ideas back and forth for a few minutes, with the most prominent being to tie him up and leave him out in the middle of the street in his underwear. "Ladies, I have a plan that will hit him where it really hurts," stated Naruto. Turning their attention to Naruto, they all recoiled at the sight of the evil grin on his face that could make even Orochimaru run and hide. Needless to say, they were all for the plan. Tsunade's hotel room. Jiraiya was currently lying in bed where he had just woken up. He was not sure how he had ended up there, but it seemed that all of his injuries from the beating had healed. Looking around, he noticed that there were some clothes on the floor that looked as if they had been tossed there in a fit of passion, and that some of them were his. Confused, he continued to survey his surrounding when he noticed that someone had just turned off a shower. Anticipating the possibility of a naked woman stepping out, he turned his full attention to the door and waited for it to open. Seeing the door crack open, he watched as Tsunade walked out in a skin-tight strapless red dress that hugged her figure perfectly. "Ah, Jiraiya, you're up. I was thinking that you may have wanted to rest a bit more after last night," stated Tsunade. "Last night?" asked Jiraiya, oblivious to what she was talking about. "Yes, you remember last night after I healed your wounds, I used you to relieve my sexual tension. Let me tell you, you were an animal," stated Tsunade, walking slowly towards Jiraiya. Jiraiya frantically searched his memory for what Tsunade was talking about, but after finding nothing, he decided to play along. After all, if he scored once with her, then she should be more willing to do it with him again. "Oh yes, I remember now," stated Jiraiya with a look of recognition, "and no, I do not need any more rest. How would you like to go for another round?" asked Jiraiya with lust in his eyes. "Sure, but you're going to have to get out of your underwear first," stated Tsunade. Jiraiya, not one to miss a golden opportunity, quickly slipped out of his boxers to show himself to Tsunade. "But you're not even erect. I could have sworn this dress would have been enough to do the job," stated Tsunade with some disappointment in her voice. Looking down, he saw that she was indeed correct. This was bad. He had to do something quick. "I will be back in a minute," stated Jiraiya as he rushed into the bathroom. For the next 2 minutes the bathroom was filled with the sounds of a frustrated man trying to get his equipment to work. Stepping out of the bathroom with tears in his eyes as he stated, "It just does not seem to work this morning." Tsunade gave an indignant huff as she stated, "Well, if you did not want to do it, you should not have offered." Matching to the exit, she opened the door and left, but not before saying, "All it took was one session, and you're no longer interested. Don't be here when I get back. You are no longer welcome." Jiraiya just stared at the door. Out that door just went the greatest opportunity of his life, and he missed out just because he could not get it up. Not only that, but he could not even remember the first time. Collapsing to the ground, Jiraiya called out, "Why, Kami? Why do you hate me so? What did I ever do to you?" Down the hall. Having walked a short distance down the hall, Tsunade entered another room to see everyone that was at the hot spring waiting to hear what happened. "So how did it go?" asked Naruto, feeling eager to know how his plan turned out. "You should be hearing the results any moment now," stated Tsunade. Sure enough, within mere moments of having said that, they heard Jiraiya asking why Kami hates him. "So how long until he regains his bodily functions again?" asked Rin. "The nerves I disrupted should be back to normal by tomorrow," stated Tsunade, "although I wish I could have made it last longer." "Do you think if we should tell him it was all just a prank we decided to pull as a way to get payback?" asked Rin. "Unfortunately, yes. Otherwise he is likely to end up in a state of depression." Tsunade replied, "It is a pity. I would have loved to torment him a bit more about it. Hopefully he will cut back on peeping, if only for a while," stated Naruto. "We can only hope," replied Tsunade. It had been 2 days since Jiraiya had been mentally tortured, and he seemed to have taken to staying away from the hot springs for the time being. For this Tsunade was delighted, so much so that she had not gone gambling the day before and had just spent the day tormenting Jiraiya. However, Tsunade loved to gamble too much, and it was for this reason that she and Shizen walked into the lobby of their hotel much poorer than when they had left. Spotting the girls, they made their way over to them. "Tsunade-sama, you should really consider giving up gambling," stated Rin when she noticed them. "I do not see why I should. It is simply too much fun," replied Tsunade. "Even though you always lose?" questioned Naruto from behind Tsunade. Surprised at the sudden appearance of the blonde, Tsunade and Shizen quickly spun around to face Naruto. "When did you get here?" asked a shocked Tsunade. "I followed you in." "So why do you gamble so much when you never win?" asked Naruto. "For your information, I do occasionally win," Right, Shizen? Stated Tsunade while turning towards Shizen. Well, only on very rare occasions, replied Shizen nervously. Traitor, mumbled Tsunade quietly before turning back to Naruto. See, even she thinks you are terrible at it, stated Naruto. Well, I would like to see you try to do better, replied Tsunade. Fine, I will, stated Naruto. Care to make a bet on it? Asked Tsunade. Sure, what are the conditions? Asked Naruto. Well, if you lose I get to keep everything in that wallet of yours and I will let you choose what you get if you win, stated Tsunade, eyeing his unusually fat frog-shaped wallet. Okay, if I win you have to train me and Hinata for a month, but how am I going to be able to gamble if the money in my wallet is one of the prizes? Asked Naruto. Just take a few thousand yen, that should be enough to see how good you are. As for training you, I am willing to agree to that, answered Tsunade. Behind the pair, Rin quietly turned to Haruka and asked what was it you said about betting against Naruto. Just that it was not a good idea, answered Haruka. So any idea how much luck he has? Asked Rin. No, but I guess we are about to find out, replied Haruka. Casino. Walking into the casino, the entire group had come to watch the proceedings, wondering how bad this was going to turn out. Wandering their way through the crowd, Naruto spotted a coin on the floor which he picked up before making his way over to a slot machine, deciding that it was as good a place to start as any. Placing the coin into the machine, he pushed one of the buttons and immediately won a few more. Playing a few more times with the same results, he gathered up his winnings before moving to get his coins exchanged for higher amounts. Making his way over to one of the poker tables, he quickly began to play the game with the same results as with the slot machines. By the time they left the building, he had gone through every game within the casino and never lost once. The walk back to the hotel was done in silence, as everyone except for Naruto was too stunned to comment on the impossibility of what had just occurred. Naruto, on the other hand, was too busy to even consider that what he had done might be impossible, as he was trying to carry around a backpack and 2 large bags filled to the brim with the highest denomination the casino could supply, and combined with his recently upgraded weights, it was a difficult task. Making it to their hotel rooms, Naruto was relieved to be able to put down the bags. Turning back around to Tsunade, he asked, so when do we begin training? Forest, Naruto, and Hinata had assembled in front of Tsunade in a clearing outside of the town they were staying in. She did not look pleased about the fact that it was going to take her away from being able to gamble for a while, but a deal was a deal. Alright, you wanted training, so I am going to run you into the ground, but before I can do that I need to know what your current level of training is. To do that I will be asking questions about what you know, and you are to answer with everything you both know, and what you each know individually, stated Tsunade. So what do you want to know? Asked Hinata. First of all, I need to know what chakra control exercises you each know, stated Tsunade. Well, we both know the leaf concentration, tree climbing, water walking and sand walking exercises. We can also keep our bodies warm in cold water, balance a kunai on our fingers without getting cut, and move small amounts of water over our bodies using a combination of the tree climbing and water walking exercises, responded Hinata. I also personally know how to expel small amounts of chakra for the gentle fist fighting style, continued Hinata. Seeing that Hinata was finished, Naruto began to speak. Well, the only other thing that I know that could class as a chakra control exercise is the steps needed to be able to perform the Rasengan. You can perform the Rasengan? Questioned Tsunade, not sure whether to believe him or not. Yes, it took me 4 months to get to the point where I could create 2 at once with decent speed, answered Naruto as he simultaneously created a Rasengan in each hand to demonstrate his point. Needless to say, it came as a shock to see a 12-year-old boy easily create 2 Rasengans and not look exhausted, which led to her next question. Alright, so what are your chakra capacities? Asked Tsunade. Speaking up, Hinata answered, well, I have about a high Chunin chakra capacity, and well, we sort of give up measuring Naruto's. Why did you give up keeping track of Naruto's capacity? Asked Tsunade, genuinely curious. Well, I kind of went past Kage level chakra capacity at age 7 from all of the chakra exercises, so it seemed pointless to try any measure it, answered Naruto. In that case, I want you to manifest your chakra like you did when you first learned to access it. I need to see this myself, stated Tsunade. Deciding it was best to follow her instruction, Naruto did as he was told. After a minute had passed, Naruto had reached Kage level. A minute later, when he finally stopped, Tsunade was beginning to feel like an ant in comparison. This kid had so much chakra that it was visible in its uncontrolled state. A moment later, the chakra was gone as Naruto stopped manifesting his chakra. Okay, I am going to stop doubting what you two say, at least for now anyway, stated Tsunade. Now moving on, what are your skills like in the basic jutsu categories? Well, for taijutsu I know the gentle fist fighting style and I use weights. I know a few basic elemental jutsu along with 2 of the basic hyuga ninjutsu, and we can do the basic academy jutsu and water breathing jutsu without hand signs. I can also perform the shadow clone jutsu and body flicker jutsus. I can detect and dispel only basic genjutsu without the Byakugan, as either of our previous teachers were the genjutsu type. I am about a mid-level medic nin, and I know how to create explosive tags and sealing scrolls, answered Hinata. What about you? Asked Tsunade, turning her attention to Naruto. I know the medical taijutsu style with weights. I am about the same level in genjutsu and medical jutsu as Hinata. I know some elemental jutsu, and I can also do the academy jutsu and water breathing jutsu without hand signs. I can also do the Rasengan, Shadow Clone Jutsu and the Body Flicker Jutsu, and I can do the same basic written seals as Hinata," answered Naruto. "Oh, and we are also both working on learning elemental manipulation, although we have only completed the first exercise," continued Naruto. Alright, now what that was as far as Tsunade got in her next question as the small group saw Jiraiya jump into the clearing. "Did any of you feel that large chakra signature a few minutes ago?" asked Jiraiya. Naruto scratched the back of his head sheepishly as he answered, "That was me, sorry." Turning to Tsunade, Jiraiya asked, "Is that true?" "Yes, and now that you are here, do you mind telling me why you taught this kid the Rasengan?" asked Tsunade. "Huh," answered Jiraiya dumbly. "I have not taught the Rasengan to anyone," continued Jiraiya. "Well, if you did not teach him, then who did?" asked Tsunade while turning to Naruto. "I learned it from a scroll my father left me," answered Naruto. "And just who was your father?" asked Jiraiya, already having an idea based on Naruto's appearance. Turning to Hinata, Naruto asked quietly, "Do you think I should tell them?" "Well, from what I hear, Jiraiya was your father's sensei, so it should be okay," answered Hinata. Turning back to the two Sanine, Naruto answered his name was Minato Namikaze. "Well, I guess that explains the resemblance," responded Jiraiya. After giving the situation a moment of thought, Jiraiya asked, "How would you like to become my apprentice?" Naruto was slightly shocked at the turn of events, so he asked the only sensible question on his mind, "Why do you want me as your apprentice?" "Well, I considered Minato to like a son I never had, so I figure the least I could do for him would be to train his son, even if it is only for a short amount of time," answered Jiraiya. "I guess that makes sense, so I am willing," responded Naruto. "Hold on a moment," interrupted Tsunade. "Before you go taking on an apprentice, you should at least know what they plan to specialize in." "Which I was about to ask them before you arrived." Turning to the pair, she asked, "So which areas do each of you intend to specialize in?" Turning to each other, Naruto and Hinata realized that this was a question that they had never really considered. "We never really thought about it," answered Hinata truthfully. "That is okay, we can wait here until you make up your minds, but just remember that regardless of what you intend to specialize in, you should also occasionally spend time working on your other skills so that they do not become weaknesses," replied Tsunade. Tsunade and Jiraiya both waited patiently for them both to decide, as this decision would decide what most of their training from this point on would entail. After a few minutes' wait, Hinata was the first one to answer. "I would like to specialize in taijutsu, ninjutsu, and medical jutsu." "So why did you choose those?" asked Tsunade. "I chose medical jutsu because I want to become a medic nin so that I can heal people instead of hurting them, and I chose the others because I know that it is sometimes necessary to do so," answered Hinata. "That is one of the better answers I have heard for wanting to become a medic nin," stated Tsunade. Another minute went by before Naruto spoke up. "I want to learn taijutsu, ninjutsu, fuinjutsu, and eventually kenjutsu." "So why do you want to learn those?" asked Tsunade. "Well, I want to learn taijutsu and ninjutsu so that I can be strong enough to protect those I care about. I want to learn about seals so that I can understand the seals required for the Flying Thunder God technique, and I want to learn kenjutsu so that I can use the sword my mother left me," answered Naruto. "Alright, considering what you each want to learn, it would probably be a good idea if Jiraiya teaches Naruto instead of me, considering he is an expert in sealing techniques. As for Hinata, I will be giving you some advanced medical training," stated Tsunade. "What about the other areas we want to specialize in?" asked Naruto. "Well, I have not got much to teach in the way of taijutsu, as mine relies mainly on using my chakra to enhance my strength. As for ninjutsu, you might be able to get Jiraiya to teach you some, or you can just find some scrolls to learn from, or even create your own." At the mention of the possibility of creating his own jutsu, a gleam appeared in Naruto's eyes as he continued to listen. "As for kenjutsu, neither of us are an expert in that field, so we cannot teach you about that," continued Tsunade. "Alright," stated Tsunade, "shall we begin?" "Hold on a moment," interrupted Jiraiya. "Before we begin, do either of you two know the Shadow Clone Jutsu?" "We both do." "Why?" asked Naruto. "Well, that jutsu can be used as a way to speed up training, and it will allow you to get in a lot of training within the month that you two are going to be learning from us," responded Jiraiya. The month of training under the Sanine had been, for the most part, fairly straightforward. They each had Naruto and Hinata create some clones at the start of each day, and then, while the two originals performed their daily exercises, their clones learned from the Sanine. Hinata was only able to create 3 clones at a time if she wanted them to still be around at the end of the day, but considering Tsunade had all 4 of them working on different things at any given point, she was able to get a lot done. Her experience with medical jutsu was increasing rapidly at a pace that impressed Tsunade enough to offer her an apprenticeship for when she felt she was ready to continue with her medical studies. Her extensive use of the shadow clones also had a side effect of increasing the speed at which her chakra reserves grew, so by the end of the month she was able to make 5 clones that could last for the full day, so she was happy with the progress. Naruto, on the other hand, could make a shadow clone army if he desired, so Jiraiya was having plenty of fun ordering the large group around. He initially had a group of 10 which were just studying scrolls of theory until they were memorized, which did not take long at all. After the scrolls were memorized, he had Naruto create about 100 clones and had them split off into groups of 2, one to practice writing seals and one to observe what happened if the clone was destroyed from a mistake it had made. There may not have been many destroyed clones, but it did serve as a motivator for learning to do it correctly. After a few days of training, Naruto had decided that it would be a good idea to use the training method in other areas as well, which would allow him to expand his chakra reserves at an increased rate, as he would be using a large portion of his massive chakra reserves each day. The only thing he had to decide was what he was going to use it to train in. The first obvious choice was using it for elemental training to complete his training in manipulating the wind, and a second option was to begin trying to use a second type of elemental chakra to see if it was possible. His third was to create a new jutsu like Tsunade had mentioned. A fourth option came from a random thought about what it would take to sneak up on one of the Sanine, which was almost too tempting to resist trying. And finally there was something that he had promised himself that he would do, and that was to complete the Rasengan. Obviously he could not complete the Rasengan until he had mastered his wind chakra, so that was out of the question. Also out of the question was making a new jutsu, because without a large amount of knowledge in ninjutsu he would be fairly limited in what he could make. He also decided that it would probably be a good idea to finish learning one element before he started on another, so that just left him with two choices: stealth training or elemental training. He had initially thought to just limit himself to one, but in the end he decided to just make two groups of clones so that he could work on both. By the end of the second week it was not uncommon to see bright blobs of orange within the forest trying to keep themselves hidden from each other. From what everyone had worked out, and much to Rin and Haruka's chagrin, the Naruto clones had taken to wearing bright orange jumpsuits with pure white face paint covering their exposed skin. Luckily, when confronted, Naruto had just stated that only his clones practicing stealth would be wearing the rather poor excuse for a ninja costume, as he could see that wearing such a thing every day would draw way too much attention to him. By the end of third week the mass of Naruto clones were less noticeable, even wearing the strange outfit, and it was not uncommon for a gentle breeze to be flowing throughout the forest. By the end of the fourth week, however, every last Naruto clone had taken to wearing dark clothing and had learned to suppress his chakra to such a degree that it was as if they had less of a presence than a tree. It turned out that sneaking up on Jiraiya was more fun than he thought it would be, so much so that he was beginning to make the Jiraiya paranoid. This was mainly due to the fact that Naruto kept a few clones hanging around the hot springs ready to alert any nearby women to his peeping, preventing him from doing his research. The wind-producing clones had also made great progress with their element during the last week. He could create blades of wind strong enough to cut thin branches off of trees and could create a wind strong enough to rival the great breakthrough technique. He doubted he had mastered the element, but he was certain that he was getting closer. Naruto's sealing knowledge had improved greatly during this time as well. He was definitely not an expert yet, but he was getting closer. He had even started to create an extra group of clones to just experiment with combinations of seals to see what would happen after all clones were expendable, so if something happened no one would be injured. Now, though the month of training had passed, and it was time for everyone to go their separate ways, Rin, Haruka and Hanabi went back to tea country. Tsunade, Shizen and Taunton went to the nearest town with that casino, and Jiraiya headed to the nearest town with a hot spring because, well, he was a pervert. That left Naruto and Hinata to decide what they were going to do, to which they decided that they had had enough of Fire Country for the time being and decided to go to Wave Country. Wave Country. They arrived by boat to one of the Wave Country docks, and it did not take long to see the poor condition of the town. Everything was overpriced. The buildings looked like they had seen better day, and the people they saw looked miserable. Things in this town were definitely not like they were supposed to be. From what they were told about this country, it was meant to be just prosperous, simple fishing village. Obviously something had changed, and from what they could gather it seemed that a man named Gato had bought out the shipping companies that the country relied on, and that those that did not sell were quickly forced to change their minds. Since then it seemed that the state of things in the country had gone downhill, and no one was able to really do anything about it because of the mercenaries that Gato had hired. They were also able to gather information on a guy named Tizuna who was building a bridge to bring prosperity back to the country, but was currently away attempting to hire some ninja to protect him. Naruto and Hinata had quickly decided after that they were going to help out, and after a few quick questions they found themselves walking away from town towards Tizuna's house. About halfway to their destination they began to hear the telltale sounds of a fight coming from one of the side roads. Deciding to see what the cause was, they quickly changed direction to follow the noises from the treetops. The scene they came across was of what looked to be a genin squad of 4 and their jonin instructor, and an old man facing off against a missing nin. The missing nin was easily recognized as Zabuza from the Hidden Mist village, a specialist in the silent killing technique. The squad of genin appeared to be from the Leaf village and consisted of a brooding boy, a possible fangirl with pink hair, an Inuzuka boy if the dog by his side was any indication, and a guy in an oversized coat who was obviously an Aburame. Their jonin instructor was another easily recognizable figure known as Kakashi Hatake, known to have used his Sharingan to copy over 1,000 jutsu. Hinata had also used her Byakugan to find what appeared to be a hunter nin from Kiri who was more than likely there to dispose of Zabuza, to there was little to fear from her. But out of everyone there the old man was the one who caught their attention, as he was a perfect match for the man named Tizuna who they were planning to help. Having recognized the old man they began to survey the situation in more depth. From what they could tell, the jonin instructor had managed to get himself caught in a water prison jutsu, and had tried to convince his students to abandon him. His students, however, seemed to be able to realize that they would not survive very long without him, and began their attack. The Inuzuka kid tossed what looked like a pill to his dog, making it turn red before using a clone jutsu to change his dog into a copy of himself, and began to attack a clone that Zabuza had sent out. While this was happening, the Aburame was sending his bugs out to make their way around to the original from behind, and the brooding kid had taken to throwing large shuriken at the original once it was obvious that he was going to be shown up, but he did not. The pink-haired girl, however, just stood next to the bridge builder with a kunai in her hand and watched the others do the work. The Zabuza clone ended up being taken out by the Inuzuka, but considering that the clones are only 1/10 of the original strength, it was bound to happen considering the strength of the teamwork shown by the Inuzuka clones. The original Zabuza had grabbed the first large shuriken thrown at him, and had started to use it to deflect some of the others that were coming at him. After he noticed that he seemed to be losing chakra faster than what he should be, he noticed the destruction bugs on him, which provided enough of a distraction that it allowed one of the shuriken to get too close, forcing him to dodge, releasing his hold on the water prison. Kakashi, after being set free, quickly got back into the fight and began using his Sharingan to mimic his opponent's movements and jutsu before being able to hit a distracted Zabuza with the grand waterfall technique to wash his opponent away, slamming him into a tree. When Kakashi went to finish his opponent off, however, the hunter Nin that they had noticed before was quick to throw 2 Senbon needles into Zabuza's neck, making him go limp. The hunter Nin then thanked Kakashi and quickly disappeared with the body instead of destroying it, which combined with the placement of the needles in Zabuza's neck immediately alerted Hinata to the fact that the hunter Nin was a fake. Hinata quickly informed Naruto of this fact before they both decided to introduce themselves. Using body flicker, they both appeared about 10 meters from the Kakashi. Kakashi was immediately on alert as the two appeared and asked, "Who are you and what is your purpose here?" "My name is Naruto, and this here is Hinata Yasuharu. We are here because we want to help this town get back on its feet, and that from what we heard the best way of doing that would be to protect the bridge builder here," answered Naruto. "By the way, I think I should inform you that hunter Nin you saw was a fake," continued Naruto. "Damn," responded Kakashi before he collapsed to the ground. "What did you do to him?" yelled Kiba as he ran over to his sensei. "We did nothing to him, he is just suffering from chakra exhaustion," stated Hinata. "And how do we know you are telling the truth?" asked Kiba. "You do not," answered Naruto, "but I would listen to her because unlike you she actually has medical training." Naruto then turned to Tazuna and asked, "So old man, do you think you could do with the extra bodyguards?" "My name is Tazuna and at this point I would be happy to get any help I can," replied Tazuna. "So, who is going to be carrying the half-dead guy?" asked Naruto. "Tazuna's house." It was late in the afternoon when they finally arrived at Tazuna's house, but none of them minded, especially those from Konoha, as they had just survived an encounter with a Jonin-level ninja. Walking into the house, Tazuna's daughter Tsunami was quick to spot the downed ninja being supported by Sasuke. "Here, let me help you get him into bed. There are some beds set up in a spare room at the top of the stairs on the right," stated Tsunami as she placed one of the Jonin's arms over her shoulder. "HN," responded Sasuke as they carried the Jonin up the stairs, leaving everyone to wait until they came back down. Coming back down the stairs, Tsunami finally noticed a large amount of people sitting around the room. "I was not expecting there to be this many people. Is there anything I should know?" asked Tsunami. "Not really, just that there were only 5 ninjas sent from Konoha and that these other 2 here just decided that they wanted to help out after seeing the state of the town," replied Tazuna while pointing towards Naruto and Hinata. "Oh well, I hope you two do not mind sleeping on the floor. We unfortunately do not have enough beds for everyone," stated Tsunami. "That is okay, we have some sleeping bags that we can use," replied Hinata. The next day Kakashi had woken up and was feeling better than he would have had he not been under Hinata's care, for which he was glad. It had not taken long for him to remember the events of the previous day, however, and it was quickly confirmed that the hunter Nin was a fake and that considering the state Zabuza was in, it would probably take about a week to him to be ready to fight again. Deciding that his team needed training, he took the group into the forest and proceeded to inform them on how to perform the tree climbing exercise. Naruto and Hinata, on the other hand, were left to their own devices, and as they had already learned the tree climbing exercise, they proceeded to head out to a nearby lake which would allow Hinata to work on her elemental manipulation. Naruto, on the other hand, had decided to begin trying to upgrade the Rasengan with this wind element. He may not yet be a master of the element, but considering that the Rasengan was mainly just chakra manipulation, he figured that he might just be able to do it. They would have both ended up creating clones to help in their projects, but due to the fact that they may need to fight someone, they decided that it would be a good idea to conserve most of their chakra until the end of their mission. It had been a few days since they had arrived, and for some reason everyone in the house had been subjected to Inari yelling at them during dinner about how it was useless to fight against Gato before running out of the room. Tazuna had then explained about what had happened to Inari's stepfather, and how it had caused the villagers to lose hope. Naruto had then broken away from everyone else and made his way to Inari's room, where he found Inari crying while looking at a picture of his stepfather. Naruto quietly entered the room, closing the door behind him, and waited for the tears to slow. "You are wrong, you know. There is always a way to win," stated Naruto, startling Inari. "And what do you know? You have probably never lost anyone close to you," replied Inari in an angry tone. "You're right, I have never lost anyone close to me, but just because you lost someone does not mean you should just give up," stated Naruto. "Why, it is not like anyone can defeat Gato, he is too powerful," replied Inari. "If you give up, then things will never get better," answered Naruto. "And what gives you the right to tell me what I should do?" asked Inari. "I do not have the right to tell you what to do, but I can point you in the right direction based on what I have experienced," stated Naruto. "I once lived each day of my life always having to worry about whether I was going to make it through the day alive because of something I could not control or understand. But those days are long gone because of a few people who were willing to give me a chance and help me out. So I can tell you with confidence that there is always a way for things to get better as long as someone is willing to fight for it. Continued Naruto before he got up and left Inari to his thoughts. The following morning when Naruto and Hinata had reached the river they usually train at, Naruto decided that it was as good a time as any to bring up what he wanted to discuss. I think we should search for Gato's headquarters, stated Naruto. Why do you want to search for his headquarters? Asked Hinata, genuinely curious. Well, I have been thinking this Gato person is willing to have someone killed to ensure he remains in control. So I want to see if we can find out what his plans are, or at the very least we might be able to find out when the next attack is going to be, answered Naruto. It sounds like a good idea, but what if there are other ninja guarding his compound? Asked Hinata. That is why we just go to scout out the compound to begin with, to get an idea of what we are dealing with, and then decide if we want to go inside, answered Naruto. Okay, so when do you want to do this? Asked Hinata. Well, I figure we can use today to find out the location of the compound, and then early tomorrow morning we head out to scout the area, and because we would have had a full day's rest we will be ready to fight if we need to, replied Naruto. Alright, I agree. Shall we get started? Responded Hinata. Gato's compound. It had not taken long for them to find out the location of Gato's headquarters, as everyone in town tried to steer clear from it whenever possible. Now, though it was early in the morning and it was still dark, the perfect conditions for sneaking around, Hinata was continuously scanning the area with her Byakugan, and combined with Naruto's ability to see in the dark, there was little chance that someone could sneak up on them undetected. Reaching the edge of the compound, Hinata was both pleased and worried about the fact that there were no signs of any ninja. This meant that either Zabuza had already left and was on his way to attack the bridge builder, or he had set up camp somewhere else, meaning he could still attack at any time. There were, however, a large amount of samurai around, indicating that it was the main force that Gato employed to help keep the civilians under his control. She also idly noted that 2 of the samurai were leaving the compound and looked annoyed that they had to be out of bed so early in the morning. Relaying her finding to Naruto, they decided that it was worth the risk to try and enter the compound. They made their way into what appeared to be the main building and proceeded to make their way through the building, checking every unoccupied room that they came across, occasionally transforming themselves into the various items that were commonly found throughout the compound in order to escape detection. One room they came across appeared to be a storage room for ninja equipment, but it looked like most of the items had just been thrown into the room. There were even a few headbands that looked like they had belonged to some missing nin, something which did not bode well for Zabuza. Picking up the headbands, Naruto sealed them into a scroll in the hopes that they could be used to convince Zabuza that continuing to work for Gato would not do him any good. Heading out of the room, they began to once again search for Gato's office. Finally reaching their intended destination, they quickly checked to make sure the room was clear before entering. Looking through the files, they found they were slowly able to put together a rough plan of what Gato's plans were. He intended to first take over Wave Country and use it as a base of operations. He was then going to build up his resources before attempting to take over T Country, making himself the daimyo while leaving Wave Country to rot. They were, however, unable to find any information on when Zabuza was going to attack, but they were able to find out that the 2 that left earlier that morning were on their way to kidnap Inari and Tsunami. Knowing that Gato sent someone to kidnap Tazuna's family, it was quickly realized that Zabuza was probably going to attack today as well, and that they were going to be used as leverage if Zabuza failed. Making their way back out of the compound, they realized that there were a lot less samurai around than there was that morning, only reinforcing the idea of the attack happening today. Passing the boundaries of the compound, they quickly accelerated in full speed as they jumped through the treetops towards Tazuna's house. As soon as Naruto and Hinata arrived at the house, they were both quick to notice that the door looked as if it had been forced open. Making their way to the entrance, they listened to those inside the house as the 2 samurai knocked Tsunami to the ground, and to Inari shouting to let his mother go. Knowing that the samurai were sufficiently distracted, Naruto and Hinata quickly entered the house and knocked out the 2 samurai. Thank you for keeping these 2 distracted for us, Inari, stated Naruto as he tied up the samurai. Why, what did I do to help? Asked as he watched Hinata untie his mother. You kept them occupied while we decided on the best way to handle the situation, allowing us to knock them out without them knowing we were here, answered Hinata. Alright, now Inari, I want you and your mother to go into town and wait there. If Gato sent his men to take you hostage, then the bridge is most likely under attack as well, stated Naruto. What about those 2? Asked Tsunami while pointing towards the 2 samurai. We will keep them tied up in one of the rooms so that we can question them after we get back, stated Naruto. Bridge. Team 7 arrived at the bridge to the sight of the workers lying on the ground, either injured or dead, while a light mist covered the area. It was obvious what was about to happen. Zabuza was about to attack. Kakashi ordered his team to prepare for an attack just in time to be surrounded by water clones of Zabuza. Noticing the trembling form of Sasuke, Zabuza was quick to comment on the sad state of the ninja under Kakashi's command. That comment was soon shot down as Sasuke stated that he was trembling with excitement, and being given the go-ahead from Kakashi, he proceeded to take out each of the clones around the group before stopping back where he started. Not bad, even if the clones are only 1/10 as strong as the original, stated Zabuza. They have improved since last time we met, stated Kakashi. We shall see, replied Zabuza just before Haku sent some Sanban into the group of genin, forcing them to split apart. With Sakura and Shino standing by Tazuna's side as Sasuke and Kiba stood side by side in the open, it was obvious who would be fighting first. Running towards Sasuke and Kiba, Haku was quick to throw some Sanban at the pair before taking out a kunai to use in close-quarter combat. Wanting to see how their students fared, both Kakashi and Zabuza watched as Sasuke and Kiba dodged the Sanban before they began to run towards Haku. After getting in close enough, Haku swung his kunai to strike at Sasuke as he ducked below a punch from Kiba. Sasuke dodged to the side and pulled out a kunai of his own and moved forward to attack Haku. Kiba dropped to the ground and attempted to sweep Haku's legs out from under him, only to have Haku lightly jump over his legs, allowing them to pass under him before kicking Akamaru for attempting to bite him in the leg. Blocking a strike from Sasuke's kunai with his own, Haku used his spare hand to punch Kiba in the gut as he got back to his feet. Realizing that he stood a good chance at losing if he continued to fight these two with only taijutsu, Haku jumped back away from the pair and started to perform the hand signs for his most powerful jutsu, the demonic ice mirrors. Both Sasuke and Kiba stayed where they were as ice began to form above the ground into solid blocks ready to react at a moment's notice. "You are both better than I thought, but I am afraid I have to finish this now," stated Haku as he stepped into the mirror closest to him. Images of Haku appeared in each of the mirrors, making it impossible to know which Haku was the real one. "Do you know what kind jutsu this is?" asked Kiba while looking at the images. "No," Sasuke replied as he mainly eyed the mirror that Haku stepped into. Suddenly they were bombarded from several directions with Sanban needles from what appeared to be a blur to their senses. The hail of Sanban stopped just as suddenly as it started, only now they had a few Sanban sticking in them, and they had no idea what mirror Haku was in now. Kakashi, who up until this point had just been watching, moved to help them, only to be blocked by Zabuza, saying that if Kakashi moved then his students would be all that stood between Zabuza and Tazuna. Knowing that his students were not ready to face a Jonin in battle, Kakashi decided it was time for him to fight. Reaching up to reveal his Sharingan eye, he was displeased to note that Zabuza had found a counter to it, but he remained confident that he could win. Naruto and Hinata arrived at the edge of the bridge to find a dense mist covering the far end, confirming that today was the day that Zabuza was attacking. They quickly made their way to the edge of the mist where Hinata activated her Byakugan to find out the current situation. "I see Tazuna, and he is being guarded by Sakura and Shino. Shino appears to be staring intently in one direction," stated Hinata before turning her attention to where Shino was looking. "I can see both Kakashi and Zabuza fighting in the direction he is looking, so I am guessing he managed to place one of his bugs on Zabuza. Zabuza appears to have his eyes closed, so he is likely to be the one who created the mist," continued Hinata before looking for the others. "I also see both Sasuke and Kiba facing off against that hunter Nin who we saw rescue Zabuza. They both appear to be in a dome made of mirrors and have a large amount of Sanban sticking out of their bodies, although none of them appear to have hit anything life-threatening." Hinata continued. "How long do you think they will last?" asked Naruto. "Not long, given the skill that the hunter Nin is showing," answered Hinata. "How do you think we should proceed?" asked Naruto, knowing that Hinata easily had more knowledge of the situation than he did. "I think we should go and let Tazuna's group know we are here and see if there is anything else they can tell us. Then I think you should go and talk to Zabuza to see if you can convince him that Gato will betray him while I distract Haku," answered Hinata. "Sounds good," stated Naruto before they both rushed into the mist. Halfway to their destination, Hinata noticed that Zabuza changed this direction of attack and headed straight for Tazuna's group, shortly followed by Kakashi. Relaying this piece of information to Naruto, they both knew that they would not make it in time to help, but at least they knew the situation in case Zabuza remained near Tazuna. Shortly before they arrived at Tazuna's location, both Zabuza and Kakashi moved off, allowing them to continue with their original plan. Arriving near the Tazuna and his two guards, Hinata was quick to ask, "How much do you three know about what is going on?" Shino was the first to answer, only that Kiba and Sasuke were drawn into a fight with the hunter Nin, and that Kakashi-sensei is fighting against Zabuza. Sakura then decided to speak up and asked, "Do you know anything about what is happening?" "That is about the same as us, except that Sasuke and Kiba are trapped within a dome of mirrors trying to fight against the hunter Nin, who appears to be able to hide inside them," answered Hinata. Hinata knew that it would cause them to worry a bit, but it was safer for them to know what they were up against in case they found themselves in the same situation. Focusing her attention back on the battles taking place around them, Hinata saw Sasuke take a hit that was meant for Kiba, resulting in Sasuke being removed from the fight. Luckily, it seemed that the hunter Nin did not hit anything vital, so she was certain that he would be okay. After quickly relaying the information to the others, both Naruto and Hinata began heading in the direction of their opponents, leaving Sakura and Shino to once again guard Tazuna. Hinata was quick to make her way over to the Dome of Mirrors, and upon her arrival it looked as if Kiba was on his last legs. Knowing it would likely be suicide if she entered without a plan, she tried to think of a way to allow herself to counter her opponent's speed. With her Byakugan, it was easy enough to track her opponent and find out which mirror he was in, but keeping up with her opponent is what would allow her a better chance to win this fight. Then it hit her: she was wearing weights. Quickly removing her arm and leg bands as well as her weighted vest, she found that her sense of balance had been altered slightly, and as she moved she realized that she was also not used to the increased speed. She figured it was because of the fact that they really only ever took the weights off when they had a shower. They were going to have to change their training schedule slightly after this was all over. With this new information, she quickly made the decision to put the weights back on as she knew what she was capable of with them on. Seeing that Kiba was about to go down, she replaced herself with Kiba in order to get him out of harm's way. Sasuke, on the other hand, was fairly safe from the Hunter Nin, as all he had to worry about was the odd stray Saban that Hinata dodged. "Who are you and why have you interfered with our battle?" asked Haku while looking at the unfamiliar person in front of him. "My name is Hinata Yasuharu and I am here because I want to keep Tsuno alive," answered Hinata. "Then I shall be forced to kill you as well," stated Haku. Although it was evident to Hinata that this Hunter Nin did not want to kill her, it was always a good idea to keep in mind that even if a ninja does not want to kill, there is still the chance that they will need to in order to complete their mission. Hinata turned her full attention to the mirror that she knew the Hunter Nin was in, but did not turn to face it so as to keep the fact that she knew where he was a secret. Pulling out a kunai, Hinata waited patiently for the attack. Haku leaped from the mirror and began to throw Saban at Hinata, only to have then either blocked or dodged. As Hinata either blocked or dodged the Saban that were thrown at her, she took careful note of the speed at which her opponent was moving. He was moving at a slower speed than what he was when she first arrived at the bridge. It was obvious that this Hunter Nin was getting low on chakra due to sustaining the ice mirrors. Given that she had seen Sasuke try to melt one of the mirrors only to have it remain looking as good as new, it was obvious that she could not use the Great Fireball Jutsu to get out, but it was likely that sustaining the Jutsu under the heat of the Jutsu would be draining for the Hunter Nin. Deciding to put her theory to the test, Hinata began forming hand signs for the Great Fireball Jutsu, and aimed it at the mirror that she knew her opponent was in. Hinata kept the fireball going for a good 10 seconds, deciding that it should be long enough to test her theory. Upon seeing the mirror undamaged, Hinata acted shocked to keep the Hunter Nin from guessing her plan. By now it was obvious to Haku that Hinata could easily track him, and decided to inform Hinata of one of the details of the ice mirrors. "You will find that it is useless to try and melt the mirrors. I am able to prevent them from melting," stated Haku. "Oh," stated Hinata while looking a bit disappointed. Hinata quickly got back into her defensive stance, ready to continue the fight. As Hinata watched the Hunter Nin, she was pleased to notice the slight reduction in her opponent's speed. Now all she had to do was wait until the Hunter Nin entered a mirror and launch a continuous fireball at the mirror with more chakra behind it to make it hotter. The only problem was making sure she did not use it for too long, because once the jutsu begins to break she would need to have enough left to use her juken. Performing the hand signs needed, Hinata timed the launch of her fireball to strike just as the Hunter Nin entered the mirror. Inside the mirror, Haku had just realized what happened. This fireball that had struck the mirror she was in was hotter than the last one, and it was not letting up, causing her to have to use her chakra to maintain the mirror she was in. She had to admit it was a good plan, as she was low on chakra and any moment now she would not have enough to sustain the jutsu. Deciding to save her chakra, she jumped out of the mirror and let the mirrors fall. One thing that Hinata's plan did not account for was that without the Hunter Nin supplying chakra to the jutsu, the mirrors were nothing more than large slabs of ice, and with nothing to hold them in the air, Hinata found that she had to jump through the gaps between the mirrors to avoid getting crushed as they crashed onto the bridge. Having gotten out of the death trap, Hinata once again began faced her opponent, only for her opponent to suddenly turn around and race towards where Hinata knew Kakashi and Zabuza were fighting. After Naruto and Hinata split apart to go fight, Naruto had slowly made his way over to where Kakashi and Zabuza were battling. He might not have been able to see, but one does not get as good as he is at stealth without learning about tracking. One of the things he had learnt was that sound was a good indicator of a person's location. All he had to do to avoid being detected in this mist was to be quiet, and to make sure that even his footsteps were silent. It was a simple enough process to get in close to the battle, so the only thing left to do was to find out which of the two footsteps belonged to who. Although even that had not been hard, as they each had been talking to each other, and Zabuza, being experienced in the art of silent killing, meant that his were the footsteps that he could barely hear, while Kakashi's tended to remain more or less in the same place. Knowing where they were, Naruto quickly decided that he would wait until an opportunity presented itself. He had to wait for a few minutes until Kakashi decided it was time to get serious, and summoned some ninja dogs to hold down his target. When Kakashi began to charge up a Chidori, Naruto knew it was time to make himself known. Naruto ran forward into the slowly clearing mist to appear right beside Zabuza as Kakashi began his run to deliver the final blow. Having heard another person running towards the gap between Zabuza and Kakashi, Naruto quickly intercepted the person, preventing them from getting killed while also pushing Zabuza out of the way of the Chidori. Both Zabuza and Kakashi were startled by the sudden appearance of Naruto, but hit it well. Zabuza was the first to recover and quickly attacked Kakashi, but ended up with both of his arms disabled. At this point Zabuza knew he was defeated. "Kakashi, I am sorry to interrupt, but I would like a word with Zabuza if I may," interrupted Naruto. "About what?" asked Kakashi, unsure of whether to allow it or not. "Well, I want to try and convince him that Gato is more than likely going to have him killed rather than pay him," stated Naruto. Zabuza suddenly found himself paying full attention to the blonde in front of him. "What makes you think he is going to have me killed?" questioned Zabuza. "Well, for one thing, when Hinata and I went to spy on Gato's headquarters, we found out that he sent some samurai to kidnap Tsuna's family, so it is obvious that he wanted a backup plan in case you failed," stated Naruto. "Then there is the fact that when we arrived at the compound there were samurai everywhere, but as we left there was barely anyone there. So considering that you were heading into battle with another Jonin along with their genin team, it would be safe to assume that even if you did win you would be in a weakened state after the battle and all he would have to do is send in a large amount of samurai to finish you off, continued Naruto before reaching into one of his pockets and pulling out a scroll. And then there is this, stated Naruto, as he unsealed the contents to reveal some missing Nin headbands. We found these in one of the rooms in his compound, which combined with everything else I have said makes for a fairly convincing argument. Zabuza considered everything that he had heard. It did make sense. If Gato was going to go back on their deal, then that would be a good way to do it. Alright kid, let's say I believe you. What do you get out of telling me this? Asked Zabuza. As Naruto was about to answer, he was interrupted by a laugh coming from the unfinished end of the bridge. As everyone turned to the source of the laugh, they saw Gato standing in front of an army of samurai. Well, it seems that there is a ninja out there smart enough to figure it out. It is a pity you will not live long enough to tell anyone else, stated Gato as he eyed Naruto. Turning his attention to Zabuza, he continued, and you call yourself a demon. You are nothing but a baby demon at best. You needed to have someone step in to save your life when you were unable to take on one Jonin. Zabuza felt enraged. His so-called employer just admitted to the fact that he planned to have him killed just so he would not have to pay. Kakashi, I guess our fight is over. Hey kid, pass me a kunai, stated Zabuza as he ripped his bandages off. Naruto turned to Hinata and asked, would you be able to heal Zabuza's arms for me? Sure, replied Hinata and set about healing Zabuza's arms. Zabuza was confused by this and asked, why would you want to heal me? Simple, replied Naruto, I need a kenjutsu teacher, and it would be fairly hard to teach me if you went and got yourself killed while attacking a bunch of samurai. Besides, judging by the way your partner tried to save you, I am guessing that it would be devastating to him if you were to die. Zabuza took a moment to look toward Haku, and realized that Naruto was right. Haku was raised to be there for Zabuza when he needed him. If he were to die, Haku would be left without anyone. As much as Zabuza tried to deny it, Haku had wormed his way into his heart, and the idea of leaving Haku alone in this world was not something he was willing to let happen if he could help it. Turning his attention back to Naruto, he said, okay kid, let me take care of these pests, and then we will work out how you are going to pay me for my services. As soon as Hinata finished healing his arms, Zabuza picked up his sword and prepared to charge into battle once again. Gato for his part had been getting fairly impatient. These people had the gall to ignore him, and he hated it. He was about to call out for his men to attack when he noticed Zabuza pick up his weapon. His arms were supposed to have been too damaged to do that. Then the answer hit him. That girl must have healed Zabuza. Gato, realizing that he was in some serious danger now, quickly ordered his men to attack as he fled to the back of the group. Zabuza rushed forwards with his sword in hand, quickly cutting a path through the samurai, not even getting a scratch. Finally reaching his target, Zabuza made one quick slice toward Gato's neck, resulting in the decapitation of Gato's head before Zabuza kicked the corpse over the side of the bridge. Turning around once again, Zabuza eyed the samurai as he proceeded to walk unopposed back to the group. Finally, the shock of their employer being killed began to wear off, as one of the samurai shouted, he killed our meal ticket. Before another shouted, now we are going to have to raid the village. The samurai began to charge forwards towards the group, only to suddenly stop as an arrow landed in their path. Looking behind the group of ninja, the samurai saw that the entire village had gathered and had armed themselves with anything they could find. None of you are going to raid our village, shouted Inari. Naruto turned to Inari and nodded with a grin on his face. Turning back to the samurai and seeing them hesitate, Naruto decided to help them make up their minds. Making the hand sign for his favorite jutsu, Naruto called out Shadow Clone Jutsu while pulling on a good-sized chunk of his chakra. In an instant, most of the bridge was filled with Naruto clones, scaring the samurai into running for their lives. Kakashi and Zabuza suddenly found themselves worrying slightly. They had both felt how much chakra went into that jutsu, and the fact that the kid still had enough left to split evenly throughout all of the clones he created left them slightly worried about how much potential this kid had. Seeing that the samurai had left, Zabuza stated, now about these kenjutsu lessons.